Howdy, fellow movie watchers, and welcome back for another edition of the Wisco Movie Watchers podcast, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, we're your hosts, Evan Davies, and our Oscar expert, even though he says he's not an expert, Dylan Davies. And you should know by now with that intro, we are back for another Oscars recap. We are doing the years 2009 of film through 2013. Now,
Yep. Real doozies.
real doozies, apparently. I will say this, ironically that you say real doozies. I, on the other hand, don't have a lot of controversial opinions on this one.
I mean real doozies in the sense that these are like some of the weakest years in terms of the Oscars. In my opinion, I should say. But I think that seems to be like, or I shouldn't say weakest, I should say like most, like as the
Consensus?
kids say now, like mid, you know?
As the kids
It's
say now, mid. Yeah,
um
I would say this is, in reflecting, I even struggled with favorites in a couple years of when we do our just normal pick your favorite movie. There were a couple
sure.
of years that I even went, there's not really much calling to me, where there's a year that I thought, for some reason, I was like, oh, I think that was a good year. And I went back, I was like, no, that's a horrible year for movies for me, where it was a struggle to even pick a favorite movie and be like, yeah, that's my favorite movie of that year. So it's a mixed bag here. And I would say there's a lot of these years in Oscar history throughout that it feels very consensus. Now that could be revisionist history, but it just feels like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. There's no passion behind it though. I just go, yeah, okay, makes sense.
Yeah. It's it's really a mixed bag because you get like there's usually about like 5 or 6 really good movies, but then you also get like kind of just ones that seem to hit a hot point that year, but then are pretty forgettable after that.
I think if we were going to do this like we do every year, I think this period of time, these 5 years in particular, is very much, I feel, a bunch of years where I'm not saying these aren't good films, but many of the Best Picture winners have little to no staying power whatsoever. And then there's other
I would
movies that
mostly
have
agree.
then there's other movies that have stood the test of time in the same year that aren't even nominated or were nominated, but it was very much like, well, they're here,
Yeah.
but they got invited to the party, but they're not the reason the party's happening, kind of thing. And then those movies outside of winning an Oscar are never spoken about again. There's not a big fan base for them. There's no real calling to be like, oh god, what a great movie. Where half their
Yeah.
competition was very intriguing, inspired people to make art, all kinds of things like that. But
Yeah. So we want to jump right into 2009.
2009, here we go. So I also added the highest grossing film of each year into my notes.
Okay,
So
sure.
2009, to start off this episode with a bang, the highest grossing film of the year is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.
Yep.
If there were a wall close enough that I could safely bash my head against, I would. What a horrible, horrible fucking movie.
I was
Uh,
gonna say I am not looking forward to that one when we have to watch it.
when you draw 2009 out of our big box office series, I might vomit.
I know. I was like, why couldn't it have been the first one? At least the first one's good.
Yeah, the first one you're like, yeah, it's fun, it's cool, like, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
So notable movies of the time, though. We are nearing the end of the Harry Potter franchise, where we have Harry Potter and Half Blood Prince up. We are in full swing of the Twilight franchise with Twilight New Moon. Avatar is released, but Avatar's year is really 2010. Uh,
Yeah.
Although obviously it's in Oscar nominations for this year, 2010 is
Yes.
really the year of Avatar because it had the exact same box office performance wave that Titanic did. It
Yes, I believe it came out on like December 20th or something
was
like
like
that.
December
Pretty late.
17th. It was really late in the
Yeah.
game. The Hangover is dominating the comedy scene during this time, but you're also getting the start of Star Trek, we're also getting a lot more of the animation deep dives, where you're getting even stuff like Monsters versus Aliens, Ice Age, Dino of the Dinosaurs. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple movies that are very near and dear for other things. Zombieland, hell yeah. Glorious
Yep.
Bastards, and a film that and Taken, huge cult audience for Taken. And I would be remiss just because part of it was shot in our hometown. It's not a great movie, but Public Enemy starring Johnny
Sure.
Depp. It was
Yeah.
it
Yep.
was filmed in the town that we grew up in, the town Dylan still lives in, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. So
Yep.
we I had to nominate Public Enemies, and that was supposed to be one of those summer but we can bait into Oscar movies, and it did not go the way that they
There was a
thought.
good story there, and they just fucked it up.
Yeah, and they had a cast that you just thought this is a can't miss. Johnny
Yeah.
Depp, Christian Bale, like you just is I believe Marion
Marion
Cotillard.
Cotillard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that was a cast where you just went, "There's no way this isn't gonna get some pub. There's no way," and not so much.
No, not really. Any technical changes you had?
Yes. So now that I don't have I gotta bring up the award winners because I do have some changes as a
I got them right here if you need
okay.
them.
I need both writing categories.
Okay. Original screenplay went to The Hurt Locker,
Uh,
and then
okay.
adapted screenplay went to Precious.
So I will fully admit I have never fully watched either of those movies,
Okay.
so I can't say to speak to the quality, but original screenplay I probably would have went with either Up or Inglorious Bastards over Hurt Locker.
I that's one of my changes is original screenplay and Glorious Bastards.
God, what a good movie! What a movie!
I yeah, I have grown to like The Hurt Locker a lot more than I when I first watched it.
Okay,
Um when I first watched it, I really it just wasn't anything special to me. But now it's like it's more of a like visceral. It gets you in the mindset a lot more of a soldier, and like there's like a tactileness to it.
okay.
But I I don't the screenplay of it. It's nothing special to me. Whereas like with Quentin Tarantino, you always get at least that's something special with the dialogue.
That's a big thing for me. Is I think writing a lot of the time, unfortunately, just goes to a good movie. It doesn't go to something very unique or different that really deserves it because of the writing. And you know, a Tarantino film, everybody knows his process at this point. It's on the page to where people legitimately ask permission if they can change a line or do something. And he's
Yeah,
open to it in the moment, but it's such a precious thing that people need to do it. And I also think Up deserves a lot of credit in that category. I know it's nominated, but I also would have probably went with Up. It's just such a unique, different film, and the writing portion of it, obviously the animation helps. You can animate to make anything what you want it to be. But that
yep,
movie for me wins an Oscar within the first 4 minutes. So
yeah. It's the first animated movie to be nominated for Best Picture since Beauty and the Beast in '91. So
it's an emotional
saying
film.
something, it doesn't live up to those first 5 minutes
No, it
quite quite as much, but it's still like a great film. I still really enjoy it.
Up is tremendous.
Yeah, that the gut punch of the first 5 minutes though is like probably the most incredible 5 minutes of animation you'll ever see.
I know Disney's always killing some family member, but that might be the most ambitious 5 minutes of film Disney's
Yeah.
ever done.
But yeah, I was
To
gonna say it's
start your
not quite
movie,
so heart wrenching usually.
yeah, but to start your movie with, oh my god, what a lovely couple, and just get the knees out from under you and just go, we're gonna wreck your
Yeah,
day, and then we're gonna leave you with this man who has no hope in life, and now he has to find hope. Oh my god.
yeah.
If you don't cry during the first 5 minutes of Up, you're dead inside. Like,
Pretty much, yes.
you're dead inside. I met somebody who said, "No, I didn't cry at that at all," and I knew they were being serious, and I just went. I don't know if I should be friends with this person. That's
Yeah,
untrustworthy. That's serial killer behavior right there. And adapted screenplay, I am a huge fan of Up in the Air, so I probably would have went Up in the Air over Precious.
sure.
Uh, I think a lot of the wit of that film comes from the writing, and it's a really believable movie. It's just something that a lot of the times comes through the page and then to the
Mhm.
performance aspect of it. And it's one of those that it's like the one time a George Clooney movie to me is undervalued instead of overvalued.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
And a lot of the time, I like George Clooney as a performer. The second I saw him in Up in the Air, my entire opinion of George Clooney changed. And then I started watching the Ocean's movies and a couple other things. I was like, oh no, I'm just stuck in Batman and Robin world where everything sucks,
Yeah.
right? But having said that, it like the next year is a movie that most people are like, what is this? Or a year from now with George Clooney, and Up in the Air is the one I'm like, anyone gonna give this some pub? It's a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, it does get nominated for Best Picture, so it was recognized.
Yeah,
It's I don't I don't love it as much as you do.
I really do
I
love it.
I think it's like a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a film I do appreciate and enjoy, but it's like there's a movie the same year in education which has a twist that is somewhat similar to the twist in Up in the Air,
Okay,
and I think they handle it much better in an education.
interesting.
And I watched In Education for the first time just like 6 months ago maybe, and I still think about it like once a week.
Huh? That's impressive.
I I know I think that movie is incredible.
Interesting.
And
Yeah,
the funny thing is I put off watching that cuz I was like, "Oh, I'm dreading watching this. Like it looks so boring."
sure.
But yeah, I
I mean,
really really
there's
enjoyed
a
that
lot
movie.
of movies like that. Unfortunately, I don't even know what got me to watch Up in the Air. I really don't. Up in the Air
I thought
truly
we
is.
watched that in theaters.
I don't know if we did, and if we did, I don't know why the fuck we'd be there. That is not on brand for any of us, and obviously we were still going heavily to the theater with Dad at the time, and that's not even on brand for Dad. It's just it's just a from outward appearances, Up in
I
the
think
Air is just
I think we saw
a
it on
run of the
Christmas.
mill movie.
It
Maybe
came out December 4th.
it may have been one of those that we did the triple feature on Christmas where we just skipped from theater to theater to theater, whoever like
Yeah.
wherever open seats. Because we definitely didn't buy one ticket and then stay for two or three movies at a time.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to do that all the time. I just don't have the time anymore. But
Yeah.
I always want to just be like, yeah, they show the seat map, and no one ever walks in to check it. So who cares? Like,
Yeah. Was that the only technical
uh,
changes you got?
I would just a maybe a nom. Not I don't think it's worthy of a win. I do think the cinematography of Watchmen deserves a shout out. I don't think Watchmen's that great of a
Okay,
movie, but
sure.
I think the visual, I think that is where the Zack Snyder style, that's what it's good at, is the cinematography, the visual style of it.
Yeah.
That's where I think his strong suits are. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Zack Snyder on this channel and how we detest him, but yeah,
Yeah.
I would say the cinematography of Watchmen is
Unfortunately,
very cool.
yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think any kind of movie like that with that much style probably will ever get nominated in terms of cinematography. Even though it is cinematographers making the nominations,
Yeah,
it just such strong style never seems to be nominated.
which is
You would think
interesting.
like something like Sin City, which has like probably the most distinct style of any comic book movie.
Yeah,
You would think like that maybe could get a shot, but Yeah.
Well, it's crazy is I
I,
think a lot of people just believe that I don't know how it is in the industry, but I think a lot of people just believe, oh, it's all visual effects. It's like, no, there's visual
well,
effects to it. There is, but the way you shoot it is also super important. Because if it's just stagnant and not getting the close-ups or the movement or anything of that nature,
right.
then yeah, it's just if it looks beautiful, it's because special effects did the vast
But
majority of the
it,
work.
yeah, and it should also be pointed out that this year's winner of cinematography is Avatar. 100% visual effects.
Yeah,
Like literally 100%.
that's another reason I was like, hold on, we're gonna reward Avatar for cinematography, and we're not even gonna nominate Watchmen. And I think Watchmen visually, in terms of the way it is shot, is more interesting than Avatar. I don't think Avatar. I think Avatar is more
Wouldn't agree.
interesting. I think Avatar is a more interesting movie in general, but I think the way Watchmen very much the look intrigues me. That's what got me to watch the movie in the first place. Was I was just like, oh, it's a comic book movie and it looks like this. I'll try it. You know, because I had never read Watchmen up to that point, so it was an interesting place for me to be in. So those are the technical ones I have, and just because it kind of fits here, they do a tribute to John Hughes in this. Chef kiss to John Hughes. We love John Hughes. What just the voice of a generation in a weird way, and it's
Yeah.
defines an era, and I'm glad they at least did a tribute to him. So it's the only place that really this fits in. But I saw the picture online where they have like all the as many people as they could that were going to come back and honor John Hughes, including like Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy, and I was like, that's nice. I'm glad that happened.
Yeah. They don't actually do that often, honestly, for like, like you would think like the icons of cinema you would do that for.
Yeah,
They don't actually do it that often for at the Oscars.
which I think is pretty impressive. Then if you get one,
The most they do is like they give you like a little bit longer of a segment in the in memoriam.
yeah,
That's about all you get normally. Or like Bill Murray came out and did a little bit of a little something special for Harold Ramis.
yes, I do remember. I was
It's
watching
like,
live for that one.
yeah, it's not. They usually don't do it something very long or special. So yeah, it is saying something.
And it truly defines a generation to a degree. Those John Hughes movies of the '80s, and they stand the test of time. That's the crazy part. Is you think a teen movie really it defines the teen movie is what John Hughes does.
Yeah,
Uh, but to have movies set in the '80s and they're very '80s, like, no one can deny those are some '80s ass movies, but they stand the test of time because there's just something timeless about the way he captures characters
yeah,
and really makes them relatable to people. Or even if it's as silly as Pretty in Pink, you're still like, yeah, no, I get it. It's awesome. Love
yeah.
Pretty in Pink.
And you're still seeing the evolution of all the coming of age movies starting from him. So
Right. Yeah, no, so I thought that was nice.
okay, so the top five categories. So you got director Catherine Bigelow, first female director winning it.
Great.
Actor Jeff Bridges for Crazy Heart. Actress Sandra Bullock finally winning for The Blind Side.
Which also has
Christopher
an
Waltz.
interesting story.
Yes, yes, I was gonna. We'll probably talk about that. Christoph Waltz for Inglorious Bastards, supporting actor, and then Monique for Precious winning supporting actress. Any changes for you?
I have no changes. I just think the most obviously interesting thing is the woman who finally wins an Oscar also wins a Razzie for Worst Actress of the Year for the exact
Yes,
same
yes,
movie.
she does.
And
Well, it's for All About Steve that she wins the Razzie.
oh, yes, yes, yes,
So she
yes.
wins a Razzie and an Oscar in the same year.
Just
Um,
hilarious.
yeah, because that All About Steve movie, it's like her and Bradley Cooper, right?
Yeah, and she's just like
I think.
hopelessly in love with him or whatever. I've only
Yeah,
watched the
that movie
trailer too.
sucked.
Okay,
You
you've
know,
seen
it
it?
sucked.
Okay.
Yeah, it's shit.
I refused to watch it. I was like, this looks so
Yeah,
bad.
that's when I was just watching like any movie, and yeah, I remember it being god awful.
So I don't think The Blind Side is worthy of an Oscar win for her. But
I
I don't have a fight with any of the other ones either. Like
oh I that's one that
who are
I
the nominees in that category?
so the other nominees are Helen Mirren in The Last Station. I haven't seen that. Carey Mulligan in An Education, Cabaret Sidibe in Precious, and Meryl Streep in Julie and Julia.
Haven't seen
So
any of those, so
I did change that one. I would have picked Carey Mulligan in An Education.
clearly.
Like I said, I think about that movie once a week since I watched it 6 months ago. Like, and her performance is why that movie works.
That's impressive then. I'm not usually a Carey
She's
Mulligan fan, so anytime I
no,
see Carey
that's
Mulligan,
the
I just
thing.
go, ugh, okay.
Neither am I. Usually I don't like her that much,
Yeah.
but like she's fantastic in that movie. And she has to be pretty young, I would guess, in her if she's not younger than 22, I'd be very surprised. Because she's
Sh-
playing a 17-year-old, I believe, in it.
Okay.
Because it's all about her dating like an adult person, like in his 30s, and she's an
Uh,
underage girl. And
gotcha.
it takes place in I think like the 70s in Britain. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so it's her performance in that. I don't really understand the Sandra Bullock. I think Sandra Bullock is awesome, and I love her, but I don't know why this performance is the one
So I
that.
will say this. I don't know what the Blind Side definitely had. It was a groundswell movie where out of nowhere it just kind of like
Oh yeah,
took the consciousness for a group of people, which I never understood. I watched it and I was like, okay, good story.
exactly.
And I
It
was
just seemed like
intrigued.
another forgettable sports movie.
Yeah, I was intrigued because of who the main character was. Because at the time, you know, like I had always had a soft spot for the Baltimore Ravens. I loved Ray Lewis. I loved Ed Reed. They draft Michael Orr, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, let me check this out. And I've always loved Sandra Bullock as well. So I have no problem admitting one of my greatest guilty pleasure movies of all time is Miss Congeniality. I fucking love that movie. I have
Yeah,
no
that's a
problem
great
admitting it.
movie. The first one, at least.
Yeah, the first one. So I adore that movie, and that's what made me fall in love with Sandra Bullock. So I was like, okay, and that is a also talk about a year for Sandy Bullock. Proposal also comes out this year. Like this is kind of like the revival of Sandra Bullock as a
Oh
star,
yes, yeah,
and then she's now kind of faded again. It's kind of strange how her career really much
yeah.
goes like she goes up, she disappears, she goes up,
Well,
she
the funny thing
disappears.
is, I think like it might have been the following week or like 2 weeks after she wins the Oscar is when it came out that like her husband had been cheating on her.
Oh yeah, because she was married to the
So
motorcycle Jesse James
yeah,
douchebag.
and
Yeah.
when I watched the video knowing that information, you can see that like icy coldness between their relationship. So she already knows that, and it is so weird knowing that and watching it. It was really funny.
Oh yeah. I mean, talk about a resurgence for her. This is the year where she's just doing a ton of shit, and
Yeah,
it's working for her outside of All About Steve.
yeah.
Yeah, The Blind
I
Side.
mean, she
I
is
don't get it. I don't get it in that one.
great in the movie. Like it
Yeah,
is a great performance, but I just don't see like it is just another like kind of. I guess the performance is good, is a great performance, but the movie overall isn't all that
I
great.
guess, but I don't know what about the performance puts it over the top. But then I also look at I haven't seen any of the other performances, so I'm not gonna sit here and be like it was so much worse than Helen Mirren. I'm like I don't know, I didn't see
Yeah,
Helen
that's
Mirren,
true.
you know.
I haven't seen I haven't seen the Julie and Julia or The Last Station. So I haven't seen two of the other ones.
Julian
So
Julie and Julia is also one of the classic. Meryl Streep's in it. I ain't watching it
yeah, yeah,
because because
that would fall under that category.
this was 1,000% a couple years from now, in terms of this age, is when when the ultimate hype of Meryl Streep's in a movie must be amazing just enormously pissed me off. But this is definitely the after The Devil Wears Prada. I don't know what it is about our culture. They just said it became like it. She, I know how good Meryl Streep is, and I've seen her in a lot of stuff that I actually really enjoy her.
Yes.
And I know I have an irrational just no. And a lot of the movies she now makes, I'm usually just not intrigued. But she has a Tom Brady-ness about her in culture, not necessarily her personality, but her in culture, where because they've done so much quality work that the public treats them as like infallible. Like, well, they must be the greatest
Sure.
because they're the greatest. You're like, no, like,
Well, I was gonna say to defend her a little bit, I do think her performance in Sophie's Choice probably is like the greatest performance I've ever seen by an actress. So it is like it,
I'm not.
she is like undeniably great.
I'm not even disputing that she's undeniably great, but this was definitely the time in which it was just, well, she's the goat, and you're like, okay,
It is a little annoying that she constantly gets nominations.
and a lot. There's a lot of times it feels like she gets a nomination because she's her, not necessarily. Because then there's other years where these other people poke in, and you're like, how the fuck did they get in? I didn't even know that movie came out. I didn't even know what that movie is. And
For
then
sure.
then there's a couple performances that you're like, God, I think they got a chance. And then it's always like,
Yeah.
and Meryl Streep and blah blah blah, and you're like, how the fuck does she keep getting
Yeah.
these nominations over other people? And the biggest year we will cover in the next episode is Into the Woods. I will not go on my full on rant,
Uh,
but that one, that was the time I just went, I have no faith in any of you motherfuckers ever.
I
Fuck all of
fully
you.
agree with that.
I
I
fuck
fully agree with that.
that one was the one I just went, I'm done. But we'll move on from we'll move on from that rant.
Um, and then I also just wanted to point out Christoph Waltz in Inglorious Bastards. You get 2007 with Javier Bardem, 2008 Heath Ledger, and then Christoph Waltz in 2009. It's like three of the greatest movie villains
Ever.
ever. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Just back to back to back. And it's all supporting actor winners. It's so great.
God,
The
Dude,
one I
Hans
would say,
Blanda. God damn, that's good.
the one thing I will say about director is I actually do think James Cameron has an argument for why he should win. I'm glad he didn't. But to see where movies have gone since 2009 with like all the virtual production and like where you can see like on set the making of the movie as you're doing it, like where you can see the virtual characters as you're doing it on set,
Yeah.
like real time. I think you could argue like his technical advancement in terms of cinema probably is the launching point for where cinema is now. I'm
Yes.
glad he didn't win because it's not the way I want movies to go really. I like more real grounded aspects of movies now. Like I'm every year I find myself leaning more and more away from that kind of filmmaking. So
I think
I'm
it's
glad he
I
didn't.
think it's really tough, and I think that's another reason why we'll talk about him in the next year. So I won't go into full like why people are always intrigued by a Christopher Nolan movie because they know as much of practical effects that can be used are used, and he tries to stay away
Sure. Yeah.
from the visual effects as much as possible. And I think it's such like a catch-22 or the double-edged sword classic because I've watched, I love Light and Magic, and anyone who hasn't seen Light and Magic, the documentary series on Disney Plus, go watch it. It's so inspiring to watch, and it really gives you a great history of visual effects throughout movie making. And I think it's so tough because all these wildest dreams that we could never imagine, we can do at the drop of a dime now in movies. To the
Exactly.
point where Mandalorian is shot where they just project the screen around them.
Yeah.
And to think that that's even possible on a television budget and a television schedule, nonetheless, is insane. And that's awesome that that's how much film has advanced. But at the same time, you're right. It does suck that you're just like, well, I need this, 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 and that. Okay, it's done. And you're like, we're not even going to discuss maybe using props master or a Rick Baker
Yeah.
or someone of that nature who's going to come through and or Stan Winston back in the day who's going to come and make these amazing visuals, but they're practical. And there is something about it where the tangibility when it's lost. It's another reason I actually like Up in the Air so much is I think it holds up really well is because it's a modern issue that we're all still dealing with very much so in that film.
Yeah, sure.
And so it sucks because movies can be made so much more efficiently, so much faster, but yet some of the magic is lost because we've gained so much magic in a different way. It's very strange.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. And then the other thing about the director award that I wanted to point out, the seating arrangement, whoever the Oscar producer was this year, is so fucking funny and so like like they have like the greatest sense of humor because they have Catherine Bigelow sitting on the aisle seat, and then literally in the next row is James Cameron in the next aisle seat.
Ooh,
And obviously those two are exes. They used to be married back in the 90s.
yeah.
So it's just hilarious.
And they're competing, and
Yes.
James Cameron.
But I
Well,
also have to point out, like, James Cameron either one is a better person than I thought he was, or two has the biggest fucking ego ever that he actually thinks he can win. Because I would have thought like he would put up a big stink and be like, "No, I'm not gonna sit here like directly behind the person who I think is gonna win." Because Catherine Bigelow had, let me see here, she had won. I'm just making sure. Okay, so the only award she had lost to James Cameron in the whole award season was the Golden Globe. But everything else she had swept. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty fairly certain that she's gonna win the Oscar. So it's like, I don't. It's just so funny that like James Cameron would just be like, either A, he's so confident that he's still gonna win the Oscar, or B, like,
he actually is a better person than we give him credit for.
yes, be
Be-
happy for her.
because also, I know we've said this in the past. Avatar is the movie that I just I that was one of the biggest examples where everyone's like, "What a great movie!" And I went,
Its visual style I really, really love, but yeah, the story itself is like, eh,
very much
fine.
so. And this is Avatar is the ultimate excuse for the ultimate self fart sniffer to really just inhale on those farts. Like
Yeah,
this James Cameron was already like,
I do.
oh my
One thing,
brilliance, but this one specifically, I'm like, oh my god.
one thing I do really love though about James Cameron is like, as someone who like really loves wildlife and stuff, he is like someone who loves, planet Earth, loves wildlife. He loves, like conservation and stuff. So I like that he's pushing those things. It's
Yeah,
just
that's the thing
a
is
little heavy-handed at times.
little, a little.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, I don't recall a movie that I've seen him make that I dislike. So I'm not sitting here like I'm not crazy about Avatar. I think it's fine. But I'm not gonna sit here and be like, I hate that movie. I'm just like, okay, it's really visually impressive. I think it's really cool visuals of it, but I think the story is lackluster at best. But and the
Yeah.
vast majority of the acting, I'm okay, like
Yeah.
okay.
Uh,
But it's just one of those that it's tough because James Cameron feels like the Bono of film. Like the things that he champions, the things that he tells are all things I really buy into and
Yeah,
believe.
they're
Like,
all right on.
and yet, just because he's always so egotistical and just sniffing his own farts all the time, you just go, "Oh,
Yeah,
Cameron,"
he's a little self-righteous. Yeah,
and you're just like, "God damn, dude!" Like,
yeah. Also about Catherine Bigelow's speech, it's a little boring. Like, I actually really respected it because, like, you would think, like, as like the first woman director to win, you would expect like this big, like, historic speech.
sure,
If she doesn't nail that, like, that could easily become like a meme
yeah,
quickly, very quickly.
yeah,
And I'm glad she just avoided it completely and just did like a basic, pretty much a basic just Oscar speech where she's just thanking everyone who worked on the movie. Yeah, so she just avoids that altogether because to put the weight of that moment on someone is like completely unfair. And to put it on her shoulders is like, I'm glad she just avoided it altogether.
yeah. I think it's always tough because I just always remember when Halle Berry wins. And it's tough to watch that speech because she's like super
Yeah,
overcome with
exactly.
emotion. And then you get the historical weight on top of the fact that you're getting the greatest achievement you've ever had in your career. And it's tough because everyone watches it because it's history. It's definitely one of the top five when people are going to go back and watch a speech of some kind. Go back and watch hers. And it's tough because it's like almost uncomfortable. You're just like, this woman is like hyperventilating because she's just gotten the honor of a lifetime in her field, and she has
Yeah.
the incredible weight of being the first black woman to win. And then everyone's like, "Oh my god, history! This is amazing!" And it's just like this speech is rough because she's just like hyperventilating. And yeah, I think there's something to it. And also, this was a couple years before the culture that we live in now really manifests. Where
That's true.
if
That's
a,
very
if
true.
a if a if a history breaking moment happens, the general public not only wants but demands that that is not only mentioned but the biggest impact, to where
Yeah.
her achievement with the film would be secondary to being, well, she's a woman and she won.
Mhm.
And that's never supposed to be the goal, and that's not the goal of the entire, whatever movement you want to say, Me Too, feminist movement, just art
Yeah.
in general. That's not the fucking point. The point is someone made something that was so great that they were given the honor for it, right? But we don't,
Yeah.
that this was a couple of years before the vast majority of people would be like, I can't believe she wouldn't even mention that. Like, man, it's like, it's her achievement. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Just
exactly. And so she had there'd only been 3 nominations before her in 76, 93, and '03. And then since then, there's been one, 2, 3, 4, 5 nominations since her, and 2 of them have won. So progress, a little bit.
we're it's getting better. It's not good
Yeah.
enough, but it's getting better.
Yes. So jumping into Best Picture, Hurt Locker obviously won, and then other nominations: Avatar, District 9, Precious, Blind Side, An Education, A Serious Man, Up in the Air, and Up.
So just to really hit home, last episode, go watch it or listen wherever you are. This is called the Dark Knight Revisionist History category, since now there are 10 and not 5. But whatever, not good. This is definitely the makeup year where they're like, we can't have this happen again.
Oh, also, I wanted to point out when they announced Best Picture this year, Tom Hanks announces it. He literally walks on stage. There's literally no pomp and circumstance at all. He just goes, he's like, he walks on stage, rips open the card. He's like, there hasn't been 10 Best Picture nominees since 1943 when Casablanca won. The Best Picture goes to, and that's all he says. Like, there's no pomp and circumstance at all. It's great.
It's hilarious.
There's also like this weird kind of coincidence where Hurt Locker's the first true war movie to win since Schindler's List, which was a black and white movie war picture, and then the last thing that won Best Picture with 10 nominees was Casablanca, which was a World War II black and white movie.
Ah,
So,
interesting.
weird
I
circumstance.
mean, Casablanca, it's one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. I adore Casablanca. So anytime we can talk Casablanca, I'm happy. But yeah, no, again, I haven't seen many of the Best Picture nominees there. Of the ones you mentioned, I know I've seen Up in the Air, Up, and Inglourious Bastards. So those are the ones that I would choose.
You
But
haven't seen District 9?
oh, I'm sorry, I have seen District 9. I was a
Okay, I was
little
gonna say,
flabbergasted that I remember. I was a little flabbergasted when I looked and I went, "Huh, District 9 got a nom. Okay." I wasn't mad, but I was just like, "Okay."
yeah. That's one that, like, everyone's forgotten about, I feel like. No one remembers District 9.
It's certainly a movie in which if you've seen it and it gets brought up in conversation, you go, "Oh, damn, yeah, that's a good movie." That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
District 9, also known as
Um,
what was supposed to be Halo.
oh,
That was all about the development of Halo, and then they kind of pivoted into District 9.
well, that's, in terms of style, that would have been bonkers. Those two seem completely, like incongruous.
Yeah, it was one of, I believe it was one of the first attempts where they're like, this Halo franchise is way too popular. And admittedly, the story of Halo, when you just break it down, is inherently very cinematic and very cool, and goes well with
Yeah,
with the
but,
idea
like,
of a movie
the
format.
style of District 9 is so gritty and handheld, and that's not what screams Halo to me.
Yeah, I know, but I believe it's one of the first pivots where they're trying to really make Halo, and then it just then the director's like, "This ain't working. Let's do something else," and they make District 9. No, I don't really have a dog in that fight. I would probably, of the ones I would probably go Inglourious Bastards. If for nothing else, you get to see Hitler die, and that's always fun.
That's my that's my change. I put Inglourious Basterds winning Best Picture, and then I also took out The Blind Side and put in Crazy Heart, which I just think is a better movie overall. But yeah,
Fair enough.
no huge like. Also, I think in education, again, I'll just say it. I think it's like a runner up if there was one
Okay.
that you could give. Um, oh, and real quick, I forgot to mention in supporting actor, a little quick shout out that it would have been cool to see a nomination for Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover.
I was gonna
Would
say
have been nice to see.
I almost said a nom for writing for The Hangover would have been pretty cool. I think that's a pretty well written movie as well.
Well, the Hangover won Best Comedy or Musical at Golden Globes,
I mean, it's a
which was
good.
weird.
The thing is I we just rewatched it. Ab and I kind of had like a time capsule night about a month and a half ago, where in one night we watched The Hangover, and all the music was just kind of bringing me back to this period in life, where it's the end of high school and all this kind of stuff. Then we watched Superbad, and I was even happier, and I was like, God damn, I forgot how much. When we were watching The Hangover, it's like, God damn, I forgot how good this movie is. Like, it's a
Hmm.
damn good movie. Also, I also forgot technical category shout out. X-Men Origins Wolverine, such good special effects.
Oh yeah.
Gotta bring that one up. No, but that's clearly a joke. Yeah, I don't have a lot of
Also,
beef here with anything.
I have one more thing for 2009. I didn't know they did this, so I just figured this out. The BAFTAs give out a award for the rising star. So you can guess. There's 5 people that get nominated, and you can guess who won. But your nominations are Carey Mulligan, Kristen Stewart, Jesse Eisenberg, Nicholas Holt, and Tahar Rahim. You know who Tahar Rahim is?
Not off the top of my head.
Madam Web villain. But he was also in A Prophet, which is like I think it's a French movie. I want to say I think it's nominated in 2009 for foreign language film.
If you tell me he
But
won, I will lose my shit.
I'll give you a hint. It's not him.
I mean, I would assume it's Carrie Mulligan for her role in The Education, but is it Kristen Stewart?
It is Kristen Stewart.
Oh my god.
But I mean, other that's a pretty solid like five, I would
Yeah,
say.
Nicholas Hoult is in that category, and he's always fun and happy and
I
good to
will
work
say,
with. But
I wrote it down for each year we're gonna cover. BAFTAs they had a pretty good track record of like saying
predicting the
like
wins.
yeah, predicting like not predicting wins always, but predicting like rising stars. Pretty good.
Okay, I mean, here's the thing. I think Kristen Stewart is not good, and I don't think that's a controversial opinion. And
But in the right situation, I think she is good. She's just not good in like bigger
I just,
bigger movies.
I have legitimately never seen a movie with Kristen Stewart in it where I went, it's a good actress. Never. Not
Oh,
once.
there's a movie called Spencer that came out 2 years ago or last year, where she plays Princess Diana. She's good in that.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
But yeah, like she needs to be in like a smaller movie.
Yeah, and all of her exposure comes in these big movies that. So I'm proud to say I've never watched a Twilight film, never will watch a Twilight film. I abandoned my friends in the same household and didn't watch Twilight when they tried to put it on and just say like, see, and they're like, I was like, what are you putting on? They're like, and it was back when you had to do DVDs and exchange a disc,
Mhm.
and I was in my friend's house and I went upstairs and talked to her dad for 2 hours and watched TV with him instead of watch Twilight. So I was like, I'm not watching this
I'll
shit.
defend the first Twilight. I think it's solid.
I refuse to watch it, and I'm proud of that fact, and I will
I think it's
never
got
watch it.
some. I think it's got some solid style to it.
Unless we get a groundswell of fans on this show that are just demanding we watch Twilight, your boy is never watching Twilight. So,
Oh, I'll watch the first one. I don't want to watch any of the other ones, but
what a bunch of bullshit teenage drivel. And I'm all usually for teenage drivel, but what a bunch of bullshit teenage drivel. All right, well, we'll end with some normality though. Favorite movie of 2009.
um, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I would probably say probably Inglorious Bastards.
Yeah, I got two here because it's really about sensibility. Up in the Air, obviously, is probably something someone would have predicted from listening to the last 40 minutes of this show. But Zombieland is definitely in that category as
Yeah,
well. It's Zombieland or Up in the Air, and it depends on what I'm into in the day.
I would like to say Half Blood Prince, but it's like one of the weaker movies to me, unfortunately.
It's the start of way
It,
cooler moments.
it's my favorite book of the series, but it's like one of my least favorite movies,
But
which
yeah, they
sucks.
take out the whole battle at the end, so then they're saving it for the next year. But yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. That's it's interesting nonetheless. But that has been 2009, and we're gonna scurry on over to 2010 in a second. All right, we are back for 2010 here, and by back I mean you didn't get to see the production of us having to pause for a second, but that's okay, fans. And back for 2010, which is pretty solid year for some popular movies, I will say.
I think so. Yeah.
Highest grossing, although it is 2009 release, it is so late in the game, it dominates 2010, and that is Avatar. That is the highest grossing film of 2010.
Yep.
Other notable films of the year: Toy Story 3, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, which I think is an underrated film. The MCU continues with one of its weaker ventures in Iron Man 2. Twilight is in full effect. Inception is here. And then we get the start of the end for the Harry Potter franchise in Deathly Hallows Part 1. And then we get a lot of really high quality animation with How to Train Your Dragon, Despicable Me, Tangled. You're starting to really see studios go, oh, we need money makers, just make a cartoon movie. Families will show up and pay for it. Megamind
Hmm.
is also in this, Shrek Forever After. And what clearly is everyone's favorite film of the year, The Last Airbender, is released. And
Ooh, good
yeah, I
movie.
saw that one. I went, oh, I gotta mention that. Along with Tron Legacy, Jackass 3D is all to show you the trends. We had to have Jackass in 3D, and then some other notable things that just we love, but not everyone else loves. So uh,
Yeah.
it's an interesting year for film because at first I looked and I went, I don't think that's that good of a year, and I went, yeah, it's actually a pretty solid year, and
Yeah.
it's when superhero movies were on the rise, but they didn't just dominate like they do now, or especially the past decade. So to only get one real big superhero movie during this time frame is almost like shocking. Right? I just went, oh shit, it's just one Iron Man movie. Okay.
Yeah. Um 2010 is, I would probably say, the worst Oscar ceremony in recent history.
Is that Franco and Anne
But
Hathaway?
oh yeah.
Oh
It
yeah.
is, when I was rewatching the videos, it was painful watching, because it's like you can see Anne Hathaway trying so hard to make the show work, and James Franco either just not giving a shit or just like completely out of it. I don't know which one it
I
is.
believe he came
But
out and said he
instead,
was
like,
super high or something like that the entire time.
okay,
But
well,
at the same
yeah,
time, I don't know that, and that would be a real convenient in modern day context way
yeah,
to kind of save your image a little bit, being like, oh, I was just high the whole time, so who knows?
yeah. Well, to be that completely like apathetic and like disrespectful to the person you're hosting with is like,
I think that's the big thing. Is I think
it's like the biggest dick move possible. And I
on
don't even like Anne Hathaway that much.
see the funny part is as someone who's always liked Anne Hathaway, I never understood why so many people just like had this weird hate for Anne Hathaway.
Oh, I don't understand that. No.
But ironically enough, in the course of one night, the vast majority of public perception went from oh this Anne Hathaway girl to I feel so bad for her, and everyone started to like
Yeah.
her, and she started to appear some bigger stuff that was a little bit more popular, and it wasn't just like rando movie roles or Disney roles like back in the day, where for a while she was doing like she had what Love and Other Drugs and other shit like that, and it's like
Mhm.
very much there's a milieu of movies she made, and in a couple years
Well,
from now,
she's, yeah, in a couple of years she'll still be facing like a lot of the like
weird hate.
completely unnecessary hate with Les Mis. We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Like, it was painful watching them because it's just like you can see Anne Hathaway, like you could see her brain like trying to work out like, okay, how am I gonna fix this? But there's just nothing she can do.
And
Literally
also,
nothing.
and it's just hard. It's just hard to watch. And I remember the dialogue because I was starting to at least usually watch the Oscars at this time, and it was always like, oh, Billy Crystal, the only one who's ever made this show watchable.
He becomes the host next year because
Well,
of this.
because of it, because it was always the Billy's not going to do another one, and then this was so bad we have to do whatever we can to get Billy back.
Yeah.
But I remember the big dialogue was, we got to make this appeal to younger people. We can't keep doing this older show. And then I remember they went and got Anne Hathaway and James Franco, and I just went, that's an odd
So
pairing. I got Anne Hathaway because I was like, she's a young starlet who has a lot of respect, and she is
when I was
entertaining and
doing
fun, but I don't know about
when I was
this.
doing some research, apparently they first approached Justin Timberlake.
Would
And I
have
was
done a
like,
lot better job.
her and Justin Timberlake could have worked. They can both sing and dance at least. Like they could do something together.
Yep.
Like they
Plus,
could put on a show at least.
The Social Network is out this year, if I recall correctly, which you're hitting on Justin Timberlake
Yeah.
becoming more of a
Well,
star.
that might have been why he said no. Like he was pushing really hard for a nomination or the Social Network,
Well,
and he didn't get one.
this is certainly the year that it went from oh Justin Timberlake's doing movies to oh shit maybe there is something to this
Uh,
guy.
I'm sorry, Justin Timberlake, you're not going to get a nomination if Andrew Garfield didn't get one. Like, sorry,
Yeah,
it's just a fact.
but it's certainly a weird and interesting show to say the least.
Oh
And
yeah, it
my
was
God, do you
it
feel
was not
bad?
fun rewatching.
I would never even want to because I still am scarred by just going. I think I turned it off, and I would just
Yeah,
occasionally put it back on just to see who won. But I was like, I'm not watching this shit. Like this is
yeah, yeah.
awful.
And then to add to the terrible host, this is also one of those years where it's just like all the categories are pretty much decided before the fact. Like all the actors had been pretty much sweeping everything, so it's like, okay, we already know who the winner is going in pretty much. So it's like those are the years where it's just like unless there's a huge just twist in the plot,
Yeah.
which is like the best times where you get like a Adrian Brody winning. That's the fun years. Like
Yes.
very rarely do you get one of
Yeah.
those.
No, because they're the six are now in modern parlance the seven seed that barely makes the playoffs and makes a Super
Yeah,
Bowl run, and you just go, what?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
I think of like the 2010 Packer team. They barely eked into the playoffs, and everyone's like, I mean, they're here, sure. And then they made a Super Bowl run. Everyone, like, God damn, okay. Like it was just one of those wild ass fucking times.
Yeah,
And those are certainly the fun ones because you get the swerve. Like it's the same reason people like watching certain events on television or other stuff because they just go, didn't see that one coming. That's fun.
hmm
Yeah, I have some technical changes, and I have
yeah,
some
yeah.
big changes.
All right. So technical, what do you got?
So I just want to say shout out to this movie because overall it's not very good, but it won for the right thing. Make up for the Wolfman. I'm really glad it won. I love the Wolfman. It's not a great movie, but you and I have big history in the theater with
Yeah,
that one with our friend Itner. We love that movie, but it's not great.
yeah. I was gonna say guilty pleasure, but it's not a guilty pleasure. It's just a pleasure.
Yeah, it's just a pleasure. Good shout out to Wolfman. I'm glad it won. You're gonna be shocked. I have a lot of play for Christopher Nolan. We'll get to that in a second. But another
Okay. Yep.
shocked. I was happy that it didn't get one because I thought this movie was garbage. But I was shocked it didn't get a nom for visual effects. Was Tron Legacy? Not even a nomination. I was like, holy shit. Okay, because everyone I remember that Christmas season, everybody just losing their fucking mind over Tron. I was like, this movie looks like it sucks. And then the bits and pieces that I have seen that movie, I went, this is garbage. Like, this is straight
Yeah.
garbage.
Well, it's not a great movie, and also it's one of those like early de aging ones too, where it doesn't age well.
Well, the other thing is, it's that one. Tron Legacy was, to me, was kind of like a follow up to Avatar, where it was all sizzle and no steak. And people were like, just look
Sure.
at it. And I just went, but is there, like, even as a kid, I was able to go, but is there a story here?
Yes, but also it's a lot easier to make a black void with a bunch of like neon lights than it is to make an entire world in Avatar.
Yeah,
Like,
I was shocked, but I was very pleasantly surprised that
yeah,
it
no,
didn't get
I
on.
completely agree. Like I'm glad that didn't get nominated.
Other technical categories that I have now comes my Christopher Nolan defense at all times. Original score. I don't understand the Social Network win. I don't get that.
Oh, I completely disagree.
I would have picked Time from Inception, or honestly, I would have picked How to Train Your Dragon, which I think is a really
Hey,
great modern score.
I forgot that that got a nomination, and I'm really glad that it did because I was like, like like the past like 10 years, I'm like, that's a really underrated score. And then when I was going back and looking at this year's nominations, I was like, hey, nice. I didn't realize it got nominated.
Yeah.
I'm really glad it did.
I mean, here's the thing:
Um,
they're making the live action version, and
oh
it's coming.
God,
It's
are
coming.
they?
Yes, they are. And the trailer
Oh,
dropped like a month ago or something like that.
oh
And
no.
I'm not a huge How to Train Your Dragon person. Ab likes it a lot more than I do. And I
Like the
remember,
first one a lot.
and I remember she said, I don't want to. I don't care." I was like, "Well, just watch it." And then by the end of it, she's like, it's just a big kitty dragon again. Yeah, I want to go see that. I was like, I knew you would. But even I, when the score drops at the end of the trailer, I just went, yeah, god damn it, that's a really good that's a really good
Yeah.
score. To even where I had like a little bit of the feels, and I'm like, I don't even care about this franchise. Like it's one of the franchises that it didn't come out at the right time for me, where I probably would
Yeah,
have been
we were a
obsessed
little
with it.
too old. Yeah.
I would have been obsessed with it probably as a kid. You know, like, oh, dragon trainers in a fantasy setting, that's right up my alley, right? But it just came out at the wrong time of life for me. But and like ever since becoming an adult, very much I am sadly probably a stereotypical adult. I'm like, animation's not really my thing. I'll go back and watch it, but it's not usually what's gonna draw me. But even I had when the trailer dropped and the score went, I went, that's pretty good. I gotta give that score a lot. So
Mhm.
I'm someone who I think the social networks. I'm far more of a
I would
I like
be
the big operatic big stuff. I don't usually go for more of the understated stuff like
I would
social
be
network.
if you rewatched it, I'd be curious what you'd say because I just rewatched it not that long ago. Because I think what was I doing? Maybe I just felt like rewatching. I can't remember. I watched it for some reason though, but I was like really blown away by the score.
Huh.
It was because I saw a YouTube video with Atticus Fin, Atticus Ross, and what's the other guy's name?
Trent Reznor from Nine Inch
Trent
Nails.
Reznor. Thank you. Yeah, they were talking about their scores, and I was like, hearing them talk about it made me want to rewatch it. So I went back and rewatched it,
So
and
I
I was
did.
like,
I went back and listened, and I think this one really to me comes back down to taste. I like the really big romantic
sure.
stuff. I don't like some of the understated stuff a lot of the times.
That they just get like the feeling of loneliness that I really, really appreciate in
Sure.
that movie.
Which I think it's. I'm not saying it's a bad score, but in listening to it, I went. To me, these don't compare. These two are far better than this, but that's just again my taste and my sensibility.
Yeah.
Editing should have been Inception.
I didn't have a change in that, but I also had a nomination that I would have liked to see for Shutter Island.
Yeah, for editing, I can see that.
And the specific reason is I think the editing actually works better if you know the ending because knowing the ending and you know what his mindset is supposed to be like and you know like it's supposed to be like this jumbled mess of a brain that you're living in.
Yeah,
I think the editing makes a lot more sense.
yeah, I can see your point now. That's true because I
Yeah.
do remember watch even in the theater, you and I watching that and just going like, "Fuck's going on?" Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's like what why is this happening?
yeah, it's just
Um
it was hard to follow, and I think it's certainly one that I don't think Shutter Island. I don't want to come off as somebody who's like a Shutter Island apologist or anything. That's like so
oh,
much
I
better
definitely
than
am.
people. I know you are.
I love
Well,
it.
I know you had already seen Leonardo DiCaprio and other stuff. People will never understand the love you gain from that movie for Leonardo DiCaprio. That's the one that you went to. Leo is my guy, and I don't care. Leo is my
Yeah,
guy,
he's great in it.
and I think he is great in it. But it's certainly a movie in which I have vivid memories of being in the theater and just kind of looking at our group and just going like, "The fuck's going on here? Like, what's happening?"
Yeah, yeah, that's the unfortunate thing about that movie is like the editing and the filmmaking of it works better knowing the twist of it. So
Yep.
it's like
It's the anti.
it's
It's
unfortunate.
the anti Sixth Sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Where it's better
It
once you know.
requires a rewatch.
Yeah, where you can look at it and go, I think this is better knowing the twist because then I get it more, and
Yeah.
it fits that well. But yeah, I would have had Inception winning editing. I just think the edits
I
towards
don't
the
mind that. Yeah.
I think the edits towards the end bring so much tension to the end
Trying
of
to
that
see who
film.
else was nominated. Honestly, I'm not upset with any of those nominations though. Like even The King's Speech has like really fantastic editing. You would think like it'd be a boring like period piece. It has like really upbeat and like really energetic editing at points, which is
Okay.
really fun actually,
Yeah, it
which you
was.
rarely get in period pieces.
Yeah. Well, admittedly, the King's Speech has never been something I've gone back and rewatched. I've seen little bits and pieces of it, and it's never been anything that draws me.
That's definitely another one where I did not enjoy it when I first watched it, and I now appreciate it a lot more.
Oh,
Like definitely I would have said like in the bottom 30 when I first watched it, and I'd say probably in the top half now.
okay. Um, Again, original screenplay would have went Inception. I think that's just such a magnificent piece of writing. The way that it's all managed. The thing is, this is Inception. To me,
I'm gonna
is
break your mind right now and say I agree with you.
usually when it comes to Christopher Nolan, don't because I am such a stan. But
Yes.
I think that is such an achievement of writing. That movie is tailor made for someone like me who always has to be this friend to explain the movie throughout. That movie is tailor made of, well, you're going to need Evan there because then he'll explain the whole thing. Like, I still have vivid memories being in Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. And everyone's like, what the fuck's going on? I had to be like, it's this, that. That's why this is happening. Oh, okay. Or like superhero movies. I always have to do that for everybody. That movie is tailor made for you need an Evan in your group for like your more regular moviegoers, and nobody has to ask a question. It's all extremely straightforward, coherent. You understand it, and that is not an easy to understand concept. And the way it is
Yeah,
written
well,
does a really good job of making you
that's something
understand.
about Christopher Nolan that most people appreciate is his structure is usually very easy to understand. Even in Memento, it's easy to understand.
Yeah, I mean Christopher Nolan's the best modern director, so that makes sense.
And something about like original screenplay, this is just my point of view, is like I'm always gonna lean more towards like something that is completely original. Whereas like The King's Speech, it is original screenplay, right?
Yeah,
But it's completely based on history. Like you have the basis of the story already there for you. You're just creating the actual screenplay of it.
yes.
Whereas like Inception, that's literally from the inception of your idea, you're creating a story and the screenplay. So
And
I would tend towards that being more original.
so that is inherently where I think I'm just like you, and I mentioned that again in writing in 2009 as well. I think Glorious Bastards or Up, I find it far more impressive when you write films like that. I like as you said, the King's Speech has grown on you. I've never fully watched the King's Speech. Again, I've seen bits and pieces of it. Doesn't intrigue me. It's not my cup of tea. At least from what I've seen. I probably would enjoy it if I went back and watched it, but this was a clear like this was one of those years that I was gutted. Where I just went, I have no faith in you fuckers ever. I have zero faith that any movie that actually is like super original and super cool and inspiring is ever gonna win over a fucking period piece. So I don't care. But this is one
Yeah.
of those years
Well,
for me,
unfortunately, eh, no matter what, Inception had zero chance of winning.
which is wrong, but because it's the best movie of 2010.
Because it was either going to be The King's Speech, The Social Network. It was pretty much those two. That was it. It
Inception's
was down
better
to
than
those
both
two.
by a wide mile, but that's fine.
No, not even close.
Inception's so much
The
better.
Social Network is a superior movie.
I I will disagree forever, but Social Network's
Um,
good. I would have appreciated the Social. I would probably have been like fine, but I think you'll be shocked that my other big changes are director and and best picture. But also, can you look up the director category for me?
yeah, what are you wondering?
I for some reason I feel like Christopher Nolan didn't even get nominated,
No, he didn't.
which is
So you're
horse shit. Absolute
so
horse shit.
yeah. Tom Hooper won for The King's Speech, and then the other nominees were Aaron Aronofsky for Black Swan, the Coen brothers for True Grit, David Fincher for
Hi,
The
Emma.
Social Network, and David Russell for The Fighter.
Wrong. Christopher Nolan should be in that category. I don't know who you take out. Lift one out. Christopher Nolan's better.
I'd agree he's worthy of a nomination. There's two in there that I don't agree with. I don't as much as I love the Coen brothers, I don't really understand their nomination for True Grit.
I remember True Grit kind of getting this weird groundswell at that time where people were like, oh, isn't it cool? Because it was like a throwback to an old Western and like we'd harken back to John Wayne and all this kind of stuff. But that was another one where it feels like
Yeah. I
name
do
value
enjoy
got
the
someone in versus the
Yeah.
actual work.
I do enjoy that movie like a lot more than I enjoy the original cuz I kind of hate the original, mostly just cuz I can't really get past how much I don't enjoy John Wayne as a person.
Fair.
But yeah, I don't really enjoy that nomination. And then I don't I don't love Black Swan, so it's another one that I'm
Black
like,
Swan is
eh.
another one of those movies that for 2 years was like a really big deal, and then after those 2 years passed, no one gives a fuck anymore.
I think Natalie Portman's performance in it is great, but it's another one where the performance is great, but the movie to me is just forgettable.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of how those movies go. And again, it's exactly like I said. It's one of those movies that is super big for a year or two and then just disappears, and no one talks about
But
it,
I
and
mean,
no
that's
one cares.
completely like yeah, and that's completely personal choice because there are a lot of like weird, interesting filmmaking choices in it.
Yeah,
Like you're always gonna get that with Aronofsky. It's just I don't really connect with it all that much.
sure.
Yeah, one oh no, I have a couple actually that you didn't mention. So adapted screenplay nomination for Shutter Island. Had to throw it in.
Throw it in.
Animated feature nomination for Tangled. They only did 3 nominations, I'm fairly
Yeah,
certain.
that's so dumb. This
Yeah,
this is
they only did
clearly
3 nominations.
this is clearly the year that you can step it up to five and still have real contenders. Not
Yeah, I don't really understand why they keep doing the 3. Yeah, and then I said my other one, which was film editing for nomination for Shutter Island. Jumping into the 5 categories. So as I said, Tom Hooper won for The King's Speech. Colin Firth won for The King's Speech. Natalie Portman for Black Swan. Supporting actor Christian Bale wins for The Fighter.
about time.
And then supporting actress Melissa Leo for The Fighter. And all of those acting nominees were like shoo-ins. They won literally everything
Yeah,
building up to the Oscars.
that
So
was another reason why that year I was just like, who fucking cares? Like, who cares?
yeah,
I watched a little bit of it just to ensure Christian Bale won. That was it. I just went, okay.
yeah. And then director was the only one that actually had somewhat of a it's a toss up kind of because Fincher had won, I believe, yeah, he had won everything except the Directors Guild Award.
Oh,
So he,
that's an
yeah,
interesting
so
one
he
to
had won
not
all
win.
the, yeah, exactly. So he had won all the Guild Awards except the biggest one. So it's like, it's a toss up at that point where it's like, okay, what's more important?
Yeah,
And most likely you're going to go with the Directors Guild because that's probably the majority of the voting body of the Academy.
sure.
Tom Hooper, yeah, I like I said, I do enjoy the King's Speech, but it's hard to argue that The Social Network isn't more impressive and a better film to me.
The Social Network is a really good movie.
And the thing
It
about The
is.
Social Network that I really really love is I think it's going to age. I don't think as well, but I will say I think it will age similarly to Citizen Kane, where the story may not be as relevant as it was at the time. Where, like, obviously Facebook's not going to be relevant in 50 years, but
One could argue it's not relevant now. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. But the movie could stay relevant because it's an examination of a character rather than a story about Facebook.
See, that's the thing I was about to say. Is I'm glad you brought that up. That movie can and will stand the test of time because it's not about Facebook. Like everyone's like, oh, it's the
Exactly.
the movie about Facebook. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is a movie about people, and that will always draw people in. There's a reason
Yeah.
that at least once or twice a week to this day, I still see memes or clip from the social network online all the time of people just being like using it for other things, or like the scene in which they're talking about how all the shares are diluted and they screw over
Yep.
Savron or whatever, and like everything that's happening, or how he just loses all of his friends out of his own ambition and greed and all those
Hmm.
things. Like those things will always stand the test of time because they're human. They're not
Exactly.
they're not about Facebook. Because yeah, if it was a movie about Facebook, it would have been popular for 2 years, and then people would have been like, "Facebook's old. Who cares?"
Exactly. Yeah, it's like when you tell a story of, I don't know, like if you tell a story of the like that BlackBerry movie that got made,
Yeah,
like, who remembers that fucking movie? No one. But
I mean,
people remember movies
I
like this.
I look at popular culture. There's a lot of movies that are of their time, and they are very popular in their time. But 5, 10 years down the road, you'd kind of going, okay,
Yeah.
because they're not these great examinations of people, or there's not that thing that's universal to drive you. It's just universal to your time, and that's how it goes. I mean, there's a reason there, like half the movies of yesteryear that everyone's like, what a classic. A lot of people be like, I thought that movie kind of sucked because there's just not something universal to it to really actually appeal to a modern viewer. You're just kind of like, okay, I mean, yeah, it's a movie. Okay.
Yeah. That's why I think The Social Network deserves the editing award too, is because, like, the structure of, like, cutting between the courtroom stuff, or I guess it's not actually a courtroom,
The
but,
settlement
like,
with the lawyers and everything else, yeah.
yeah, and then, like, back to his early days at college, and to the early days at Facebook, and then when he's broken apart with all his friends and stuff. I really like how they split up between those, like, there's, like, 4 different time periods they're really telling the story of.
Yeah.
I love how they're cutting between those, so I really enjoy that
I mean, it's
editing of that.
notice I did not say anything about original screenplay fighting so much as I was like, I just like Inception more. But the Social Network, I was like, yeah, I can't argue it's bad. I was like,
Yeah,
that's a hell of a piece
um,
of writing on Sorkin's part. That's no one can argue
and
that.
then everyone said it from when they announced the nominees, it is, like, a true crime that Andrew Garfield didn't get a nomination for Best Supporting Actor.
He brings a
It's,
lot of
like,
the
so
heart and the
confusing.
relatability to that movie. Yeah, it's
Yes,
tough.
and he's fantastic in that movie. It is, like, I would argue, uh, other than Christian Bale in The Fighter, it's the best performance of a supporting actor that year. And I would say it's on par with Christian Bale. Like, I would be totally fine if Andrew Garfield won the Oscar for it.
I think it's just more that movie. Obviously, the biggest points of tension in that movie all involve Andrew Garfield. But a lot of that movie doesn't have Andrew Garfield in it at all. It kind of like sort of like phases him out to a degree.
Yeah, but that's the supporting actor.
And I think maybe I'm just trying to find a solution to why, as opposed to saying like, oh
Especially
no,
when you consider, like, there has been supporting actors who won Oscars for
3 minutes.
screen time of 8 minutes. Yeah.
I don't have an answer for you there. I wish I did, but let's get to Best Picture.
Best Picture. So the winner, The King's Speech. Other nominees: 127 Hours, The Social Network, Toy Story 3, True Grit, Winter's Bone, which was a huge surprise at the time, Black Swan, The Fighter, The Kids Are All Right, and Inception.
We already know one of my choices, but
Yes.
I also would have argued for Toy Story 3. And I would have argued
Being in
for
there
no,
or winning?
for winning. And I would have been fine
Okay.
with the Social Network winning over King's Speech. But again,
I
period
I
piece
said
doesn't get
Social
to me.
Network. I said Social Network winning. Is there anything you would have taken out for another
I don't
movie?
have enough to say I would have taken something out, and I don't know of another movie that'd be like, oh yeah. But granted, this isn't a swap situation where back in the day you had the finite five and you had to swap them out. Now it's just like, I don't
I
know.
have
You
I have
breathed and it
two.
was good, so we can put you in.
I I would have taken out Winter's Bone, and I would have taken out Black Swan, and I would have put in The Town and Shutter Island.
I don't think Shutter Island is of that quality. I think
I
it's an
I
underappreciated
think it's
movie, but I don't think it's that
criminally
good.
underrated.
I don't agree with you. I enjoy it. You know it. I enjoy it. We both enjoyed watching that movie together. But The Town, I think, is criminal. Like when you talk about criminally underrated, I think The Town is criminally
Yeah,
because that's
I
the
think it
first
only gets
movie in forever that Ben Affleck is playing a legit like God damn he's good,
yeah,
and
and I'm
people
pretty
did
sure it gets
not want
one
to give it credit.
nomination. It gets one nomination for Jeremy Renner for supporting actor, and I think that's
No.
it.
Yes, I saw that and I was like, oh shit, The Town. The Town. I honestly, truly believe The Town is just people were not ready for Ben Affleck to be taken seriously. Because remember, this is the time when he's going
Yeah,
through.
that is its only nomination.
This is the time Ben Affleck's going through a bunch of personal issues, or after the time he's gone through the first big wave of public personal issues. He's coming off a string of bad movies where you just didn't even like see Ben Affleck and stuff for a while because it was so bad, like Geely and shit like that years past. And I remember The Town came out, and at first I was like, it's just like Ben Affleck. I don't want to watch that fucking movie. Everything Ben Affleck touches sucks. And then I don't know what it was, but I just gave it a shot and I went, "Holy shit, this movie's good. This movie's really good." And I that's the movie that got me to go, "Nah, I'm done with my Ben Affleck hate. I fucking love Ben Affleck and shit. Like this is awesome."
Yeah, that I would agree. Criminally underrated.
Which is
And I
funny
think
because
most
about
people
criminals.
actually have. I think most people actually have seen The Town and agree.
I think it's a little bit. I think it's a better version of District 9, but in the similar conversation of what we talked about, where if
Sure.
it comes
Yeah.
up in conversation, people go, God damn, that was good, right? But no one ever brings it up because it's just one of those movies that came and
Yeah.
went and was rad, and that was it. So, uh,
Oh, I also forgot to mention a shout out to nomination for Leo in Shutter Island.
of course
Just,
you do.
just to
I
put it in
could
there.
at least, I would accept that over Best Picture. I would accept
No,
that over Best Picture.
it's got to be in there.
Also, I'd be remiss because we've just kind of been walking around it a lot. Toy Story 3 is so fucking good.
It is.
That movie is
It is like
incredible. And I understand we are the target audience, and that is why our entire generation just goes, it is the untouchable. It's the
it
untouchable
might
animated
be
film of all time, but
it might be the greatest like finale of a trilogy other than Return of the King.
yeah.
Like it's hard to say it's
Other
not
than
second.
Return of the King, I think you're correct.
Yeah, because it's better than Return of the Jedi easily.
Yeah, it's better than The Dark Knight Rises. It's better than just trying to think of other really good trilogies. Yeah,
Better
I
than Superman 3.
no shit.
Better than The Hobbit.
Yeah, yeah. I will again.
Better
talk about
Godfather 3.
talk about a 1-2 punch, man, or for Pixar. Hey, you guys
Yeah.
remember how we made you cry last year? Get ready. Like
I would have been totally fine with them winning Best
the
Picture for that.
scene Toy Story 3 when they're in the incinerator and they all hold hands and you're like, this is how it ends. If you're not sobbing, you're not human. You are can go fuck yourself, dude.
Yeah. There's a one of the challenging things about when they nominate Best Picture and it's an animated movie is that and they also get a nomination for Best Animated Feature. It's like, oh, gee, I wonder who's gonna win this. It's like it's almost that thing where like if they get a Best Picture nomination, should they also be eligible for Best Animated Feature then?
Yeah, I think that's a really tough middle ground to be in, and
Exactly.
I think 2 years in a row they just lucked out that there were movies that they deserved both.
Yeah, I'm always like of the opinion like if it deserves Best Picture, it deserves Best Picture nomination, but it is probably also the Best Animated Feature. So it's like they deserve both. But
Well, yeah,
you could see the argument like, what's the point of the redundancy of it?
yeah, because the flip side of that argument is it gets a nomination for Best Picture and it doesn't win Best Animated Feature. Is Then you have a whole bunch of people. Hold on, How to Train Your Dragon's better than Toy Story 3? Are you kidding me? Like
Yeah,
that's and it takes away the
exactly.
credibility of the award because you're like, hey, all due respect to How to Train Your Dragon or anything else nominated that year, fuck you. Toy Story 3 is better, and everybody knows
Yeah.
that. It's just factually inarguable, essentially. But yeah, it's tough. It's a tough subject to cover because you're like, I don't know, sure,
Favorite
but
movie of 2010?
I'm gonna shock you. It's not Inception, which,
Oh,
but that's because
okay.
my favorite comfort movie of all time came out this year. It's Tucker and Dale versus Evil, baby.
Oh, okay.
Two of my top 10 movies of all time come out in 2010. It's a strong year for Evan Davies.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I would probably say Toy Story 3, if not that, Shutter Island, but
I also
Toy Story 3
adore
is above that.
I also adore my favorite Ridley Scott movie of all time comes out this year in Robin Hood with Russell Crowe and Kate Blanchett. I adore that movie.
Yeah, that movie. That's something.
I fucking love that movie. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I love it. I watch it
It
all the time.
I remember the last time I rewatched it, which had to be like at least 10 years ago. I remember it just being way more boring than I remembered it.
Yes, I know most people are like, "What a boring movie." I adore it. It's a comfort movie for sure. And I'd be remiss, and we didn't say this. Favorite Harry Potter movie comes out this year. Deathly Hallows Part One.
Your favorite?
Yeah,
Wow,
I think
okay.
Deathly Hallows Part One is by far the best of that series.
No, not even close.
I think
Prisoner of Azkaban, superior.
all the emotional weight of that series is in Part One. Part Two, I don't think is anywhere near as good as Part One.
Well, I mean, I would agree with that point,
I just think
but
I think the only thing I will say about Harry Potter as a film franchise that was tough for me was like Goblet of Fire and even Prisoner of Azkaban are supposed to be these like big emotionally heavy things where you start feeling the weight of the world coming down on you.
mhm,
And admittedly, I didn't get any of that until Part 1. Part 1's the one where I
uh,
went, "Wow, they are really showing how much of a burden this is to these three, but specifically Harry." But the three of them are the ones that like they are carrying the burden of the world and it's truly breaking them. Like it's the first time I ever saw a parable of fantasy between them and like Lord of the Rings, where you can see the burden of the ring throughout the entire trilogy of Lord of the Rings,
yeah.
and you can really feel it and understand it. Part one's the first time I ever went, yeah, this is bullshit that these kids have to go through this. Like that sucks.
Yeah. I think it's different if you read the books while you watch it. So,
But yeah, I think that's why I'm like, okay, because I didn't read the full series until I was past the movies. So, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that too, because I think it's definitely my favorite Harry Potter film.
Okay, so BAFTA Rising Star. Here we go.
Boy,
Nominations: Aaron Taylor Johnson, Gemma Arterton, Emma Stone, Tom Hardy, Andrew Garfield.
that's a hell of a
Quite a
category.
lineup. Yeah.
Of that category, who do you take? If you got to take one, who are you taking?
I mean, I have my personal choice of who I would have picked, but who do you think BAFTA chose?
BAFTAs? That's giving me Tom Hardy, but yeah, I'll pick Tom Hardy for a BAFTA Rising Star Award.
You got it. Ding,
Yeah,
ding, ding.
but what a hell of a lineup. Read that
I know.
lineup
I was like,
again. Read that lineup
Aaron,
again.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, Gemma Arterton, Emma Stone, Tom Hardy, and Andrew Garfield.
That's a hell of a lineup. If Aaron Taylor Johnson is your fourth best in that list, you're doing
Yeah, I was
pretty
gonna
well.
say.
And the other thing is this:
Yeah,
she gets unrightfully shit on because she just always picks bad movies. Jim Arterton is actually pretty damn good. I
yeah,
always like her and what she's doing. It's just she's always in these weird ass movies that like they
yeah,
never do well. She just needs one of the. She needs to just get put into a really good movie once.
yeah. And she might be in like some British like movies or TV shows that we just never see.
Yeah, she just needs one of those big. You know what she needs? She needs to just be part of the ensemble in a Christopher Nolan. And then everyone will be like, God damn,
That'd
she's
be
so good.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You know what I'm saying? Just like she's like the fifth player in a movie like Oppenheimer. Where you can still shine because it's Christopher Nolan and you know there's gonna be screen time because it's Christopher Nolan, but she's not like the star, but everyone's gonna be like, I really like her. She's really good. Like
Yeah, I think she's really charming whenever I see her.
yeah, I love her in Quantum of Solace, and that's not a movie to make people shine. And I love her in that
No,
movie.
it is not.
It is by far the weakest of the Daniel Craig series of Bond films.
Yeah,
It's not even close. That is by far the least of the five that he is in, and I still enjoy her presence in that movie. But yeah, no, that was 2010, folks. 2010. We're going to be moving on to 2011. And for 2011 here, folks, highest grossing film, with no surprises, is Harry Potter Deathly Hallows Part 2. Notable films of the year: Transformers 3, which is Dark of the Moon. Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. Talk about some shitty
no.
franchises.
Twilight Breaking Wind Part 2.
The Hangover 2. As much as I
No.
like this movie, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Cars 2. Fast and the Furious 5, which I will say for many people is the revitalization of that franchise. So I won't immediately shit on it just because it's not my thing. 4. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Captain America First Avenger. X-Men First Class. So this is where we started to see some better superhero movies as well. And we also have Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. But we'd be remiss if we didn't say these two. Bridesmaids, one of the most popular female-driven comedies of all time, or possibly the number one, and it deserves a lot of credit for it. But who can forget 2011 for the greatest movie ever made? Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern is released in
Oh,
2011.
yeah. Hey, actually, since you brought up Bridesmaids, it actually did get nominated for.
I saw and I was very pleasantly surprised. That movie deserves a lot more praise than it gets. And
Well,
it got a lot of
it
praise.
got nominated. It got nominated for like whatever the Producers Guild is for Best Picture, like their equivalent of that. So, I mean, the Producers Guild, I will say, they seem to be more like in tune with public reception
Does that shock you?
because
They're the ones that are responsible for
eh,
making the majority of those movies.
yeah, that's true. Because like in 2009, I want to say, yeah, it was 2009. One of their nominees was Star Trek. '09 Star Trek,
Interesting.
which surprised me. Yeah, they have some surprising choices at times, and I'm like, it's kind of cool to look at their not list sometimes. Any technical changes this year?
What a nomination, not a change, but a nomination. I think Thor deserves a costume design nomination. I think the costuming in Thor is really well done.
Let's see here. See who the nominees were. The artist wins.
Big shock
Anonymous,
there.
yeah, Anonymous, Hugo, Jane Eyre, and WE. So Anonymous, actually, all of those are period pieces. Literally every one.
Yep.
Because Anonymous is a Shakespeare movie. The artist is like 1920s. Hugo's 1920s. Jane Eyre, I have no idea, but it's a period piece.
Yeah.
And WE is 1930s, I want to say. Whenever Edward the Eighth is.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Actually, it's the person in the King's Speech, his brother.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I am I'm over the period piece with the Oscars at this point.
I will say, if they're gonna be nominated for anything, it's always costumes that deserves it. But
Well, especially it's directed by Kenneth Branagh. It's extremely Shakespearean how it's presented. And the costumes are legitimately great in Thor. Like
you
if
also
you said
have to,
costumes for Iron Man, I'd be like, that's stupid because half that suit that you see is visual effects, and most of it is just the chest plate, and then it's all visual
you
effects from
also
it.
have to consider what is the studio pushing. Like, are they pushing for awards at all for that movie? Maybe not.
Marvel really didn't try to do much in the early
Yeah,
days. And that's the
they
problem.
might not even like be putting out screeners at all for the Academy voters at all for those movies.
Yeah, I mean the thing is this is
Because
Marvel.
I actually have a an example of one. Because it was really hard to find a Blu-ray of Nomadland.
Okay.
So I bought this one where it's the Blu-ray, and then literally right under it, it says for your consideration. And it's like this
It's a test screener?
yeah, it's like a really thin, and then it will list like what awards they want you to consider it for.
Interesting. For you to have
Yeah,
that
so
piece
it's like
there. That's pretty cool.
so that's what studios will put out to Oscar voters.
Also, I'm going to
So
say this
I
missed
wouldn't.
opportunity for Deadpool to just for their release to put that on the cover and be like for your consideration just all jokes. But
I mean, they might have. I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Disney just straight up didn't do that at all for
I will say
any of the
Marvel
Marvel
Studios
movies.
in general really didn't try to get into the awards game until about Black Panther in the
Yeah,
Civil War era.
exactly. Yeah.
And because I remember there was even talk that they were pushing for Robert Downey Jr. to get a Best Actor nom for Endgame, and I was like, like you're talking my peak fandom for Endgame, and I was like, guys,
Mm,
like, come on, come on.
yeah, that'd be a stretch.
And
I mean, they did fairly well with Black Panther though. I mean, that
I
got
mean,
quite a bit of nominations.
yes, it did. But yeah, I that's one of the only technical ones I have, and visual effects. I believe I it's nominated, but I Rise of the Planet of the Apes I think deserves
That's one of my changes.
is the change. Caesar looks so good.
Yeah. It's like yeah, the character work of it is like incredible and it still holds up.
Yeah, Andy Circus baby. It's Andy
That's
Circus
one of
movie,
those
baby.
things that like Hugo like visual effects are all over that movie, yes, but it's another one of those ones that like it's not nearly as impressive as like it is like kind of virtual production-ish
Yeah,
where like they are creating like a lot of the environment, but it's like, is that as impressive as creating an entire character
I think this is where,
and making it 100% believable?
to me, this is one of those classic examples of the people of the time not getting ready for the time that's coming. And it shows like, no disrespect to Hugo, no one talks about Hugo. That movie
Yeah,
came and went, and it was. Is that movie directed by Spielberg
Scorsese.
or Scorsese? Thank you. And I have no beef with Hugo whatsoever. I've never seen it. It looked interesting. It just came and went.
It's pretty forgettable, honestly.
But it's certainly a movie in which it feels like this is what it's supposed to be, and then there's this clear leap into what is and
Yeah,
going to be the
Hugo had
future,
like,
to the point where I remember for every year of the revamped trilogy of Planet of the Apes, the debate came up: should Andy Serkis be nominated for Best Actor? Every year, and I
yeah,
think he
I
deserves
do
it.
remember that. Yeah,
And I will say I never thought about that because I didn't look at. I looked at the nominees for Best Actor and I was like, okay, I got no beef with any of them. I didn't really know that year much. The King's Speech. Clearly, you can see from my awards is where I just quit. I just quit trying
hmm
because I just went, whatever. I got no hope anyways. Who fucking cares? I would like to revisit that now with that thought because I always think Andy Serkis deserves a lot of
yeah.
praise critically
That was one of
for
my shout
his
outs.
role for Caesar.
Yeah, that was one of my shout outs listed for best actor. Yeah, Hugo was actually nominated for 11 nominations. So
I saw that,
that's that's the most of the year, which just shows you how much they love that movie that year.
and
Um,
nobody gives a flying fuck about it since.
yeah, and no one really mentions it at all in terms of Scorsese's filmography ever.
I mean,
So it
look, I
is
just
pretty
forgot it was a
forgettable.
Scorsese film. I just remembered a big
Yeah,
time director directed it.
yeah. The only other technical change I had is adapted screenplay nomination for The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
I
I
would
love
agree with
that
that.
movie,
I think that's a
which
great
which
movie.
you'll see later.
That's a great movie. Also, underrated
Yeah,
film. But again, it's one of those that came out, had like 2, 3 year run where people are like, whoa, what a movie. And then it just disappeared. And no one ever talks about it ever again. Unless they're doing shit like
true.
this, where like no one talks about
Yeah,
it. Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara both are phenomenal in that movie.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about Rooney Mara in a second.
Uh,
Did you have any other?
nope.
Okay, so jumping into the five, you got Michel Hazanavicius winning Best Director for The Artist, actor Jean Dujardin for The Artist, actress Meryl Streep, your favorite, winning for The Iron Lady, supporting actor Christopher Plummer for Beginners, and supporting actress Octavia Spencer for The Help.
Yep. That's a crew. They won.
I only have one change.
I've
I
never
said,
seen The Artist almost out of protest because it's just like,
oh,
this is stupid.
it's actually a really good movie, yeah, honestly.
Again, it's one of those that at the time I just went,
Really
that's
enjoyable.
dumb. But now with far more maturity, I probably would have been like, I'll watch it.
Yeah. Especially as someone who loves singing in the rain. It's kind of singing in the rain. It's like singing in the rain like a little bit.
Okay.
Um it's not a musical up, but yeah, there's definitely inspiration taken from it. Yeah. I said Rooney Mara for best actress instead of Meryl Streep,
Okay.
even though best actress is the only one of those categories that actually had any kind of like competition at all, and it wasn't between those two. It was between Meryl Streep and Viola Davis. Viola Davis won the SAG award and the Critics' Choice Award, Meryl Streep had won the BAFTA and the Golden Globe. So going in, you probably would have assumed,
It's going to be one of those two.
yeah, and you would have assumed probably Viola Davis would have won, but yeah, she didn't. Yeah, she was nominated for The Help, which that's another movie where like I don't remember anything about that movie.
Never watched it. I know
Yeah,
what it's
I
about, but
remember
that's
it.
about it.
Yeah, I remember it being perfectly fine, but I don't remember anything about it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there
I
you
remember
go.
Viola Davis and I remember Octavia Spencer being really good in it. And I remember Bryce Dallas Howard being a bitch in it, and that's about it.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Again, best. I would have said best actor. Would have liked to see a little pub, or I guess he would be a supporting actor in that because James Franco kind of leads more of that movie. But Andy Serkis as
Um,
Caesar, I could see it either way. I could see it be going either way.
yeah. The studio could push it either way. They
Yeah,
could literally pushed it any way they wanted it
yeah.
if they wanted to. Because yeah, they do that all the time. They push things that aren't even remotely close to what reality is,
What
and
was
they
it? It
get
was
away
just
with
a
it.
just a couple years ago. They put somebody in a supporting category. I'm like, how is that a supporting actor? Like,
They did it with what's the girl's name in shit. Now I'm gonna blank on her name again. She's in True Grit.
Haley
It's the girl
Steinfeld.
Haley Steinfeld. Haley Steinfeld. They said she was a supporting actress, even though she's like, I think she's in literally every single scene of that movie. Like she is not a
Oh
supporting actress.
yeah,
She
yeah,
is
yeah.
the actress in that movie.
But they're gonna be like, well, no, it's about Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges is the
Yeah,
one driving this
exactly.
movie. You're like,
It's
shut
no.
up.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Christopher Plummer. I love Beginners. It's a criminally underrated movie. No one ever talks about it. No one's ever seen it really. It's him and Ewan McGregor.
Never heard of it. I literally did not hear about it until I read it
Yeah,
on the sheet.
he's
Until I read it for
um.
the notes.
So he was. Let me see here. He was 82 years old when he won, making him the oldest winner of an acting category at the time.
Hell yeah.
Although I think Anthony Hopkins just overtook that. He won in 2020, and I don't know how old he is, but he's pretty old,
He's
so
getting
he
there.
might have. Yeah, he might have just overtaken that. I don't know how old he
Old
is.
man Tony. He's helping us out.
Yeah, yeah, he might be older than 82. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Christopher Plummer plays like in Ewan McGregor's dad, and he's like coming out as gay as an older 82
Oh,
year old
well, that's
man.
really cool.
Yeah, it's just like a really fun, enjoyable comedy that you rarely get. It's just really heartfelt. Yeah, it used to be on my top 100 movies of all time back in the day,
Wow. Okay.
so I really enjoy
I
it.
can't wait till we do our top 100 movie episodes, and yours and mine are going to be so wildly
Yeah,
different.
and then just a couple shout outs: Daniel Craig in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo,
Yep.
and then this one's just personal. I have to do it. Alan Rickman in Harry Potter,
If
Deathly
anyone's
Hallows Part
gonna
Two.
get it, it should be Alan Rickman.
I remember at the time being like so hopeful. I was like, "Oh, please, please, please!" And then when he didn't get it, I was like, "Fuck you!" I was so bummed that he didn't get one. I was like, "Oh, this was his like last chance of getting one."
Yeah,
'Cause
he honestly, I think that kind of works in his benefit in a weird way. Where because he never won one, it's
I mean,
more
he was still
infamous.
alive at the time. It's just like that was his last chance as Snape or in the Harry Potter franchise of getting something. So it's like
Yeah, I mean,
would have been nice to
I
get.
can't really see a performance in Harry Potter that's gonna win. Besides maybe Snape, and even still, I'm like, it's a stretch. Like if I'm trying to
Yeah.
even looking, I'm like,
No, it's definitely a stretch. I just
I'm
I just
really trying to help
I
you
love
out
it.
here, and I can't think of a single one that I'm like, yeah, like
He's good in the movie though. He
yeah,
is good.
same thing. Like maybe Gary Oldman for Prisoner of Azkaban, maybe.
I would say that deserves a shout out. Yeah.
But that's again a stretch on my part trying to help you out. Like,
Yeah. So, did you have any other shout outs or changes?
well, let's go to Best Picture. I have an opinion, but
Okay.
it's just because of what I like.
Okay. So, best picture, the artist wins it. Oh, this is also when they implemented that rule of if it doesn't get at least 5% of number one votes for best picture, it's not eligible. So that's why there's 9 nominations and not 10.
Which I don't hate that rule. I think it can
Yeah,
work
I like
against
that
you.
rule.
I think it can work for you or it can work against you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why there's 9 and not 10. The artist wins it, and then you got The Tree of Life, War Horse, Descendants, Moneyball, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, Hugo, Midnight in Paris, and The Help.
Go back for 1 second to because I just remembered this. Does Brad Pitt at least get nominated for Moneyball? So I
Oh,
think Jonah Hill does, if I remember correctly.
Brad Pitt does get nominated, and Jonah Hill also does get nominated.
I would have been fine with either of them, but I adore Moneyball.
Moneyball is a movie that has grown on me so much.
Moneyball has become an ultimate comfort movie, and I watched it on a whim a couple years ago, and I have watched it maybe 30 to 50 times since. It is just one of
Yeah,
those that
it's a good movie.
I just put it on and I let it roll. You know I hate baseball.
Yeah,
And
exactly. I
and
don't
it gets
enjoy
me
it either.
interested and to care about baseball. One
Yeah.
thing in my entire life has made me do well, two, and that would be The Sandlot and the backyard sports game franchise of
Yeah.
video games back
Yes.
in the day. Those are the only two things that have ever made me care about baseball. And then Moneyball. And that is it. So you'll be shocked that I would think my best picture winner would be Moneyball, but that is just me.
Okay.
That's just me liking Moneyball. I haven't seen the artist. I don't plan on ever watching the artist. I don't plan on watching a lot of the other movies. It's just like, okay.
So this year has one of the movies that I think is like literally one of the least deserving Best Picture nominees I've ever seen, which is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. The movie is the most mediocre movie. It's like it's not good to me at
It's not
least.
good. It's not good. It's not good.
I just do not enjoy that movie at all. It's got like this and whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just mediocre.
It got a
Um
nomination when you feel it didn't deserve it. There you go.
yes. And then the other one that I just don't personally enjoy is Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life. I know a lot of people do enjoy it. I do enjoy some Terrence Malick movies, like Days of Heaven and In Red Line, but Tree of Life is just one I just
He's a
don't
director that's never
enjoy.
really made like a big movie to really like.
No, he doesn't. Yeah. All his movies are really, really understated and quiet and yeah.
Yeah, because I remember like
Y-
getting into movie on online movie circles and people like, oh, upcoming Terrence Malick project. I'm like, who the fuck is that? And I
Yeah.
learned it because Christian Bale was supposed to do one for like years.
Oh, he did one with Rooney Mara. Yeah.
Yeah, but like that was supposed to like that thing was in production for like years and years and years. Where for like 5 years it was
Turned out bad.
Christian Bale's gonna do a Terrence Malick movie, and I was like, cool. And then 3 years later, upcoming Terrence Malick project. I'm like, it's been 3 years and there's nothing
Yeah.
happening with this movie. Like, damn.
Yeah. A lot of his it's really hit or miss for him as well.
Yeah.
Tree of Life just I don't connect with it all that much. Although the start of the movie starts with dinosaurs, which was really cool, which you would never expect with Terrence Malick. So I took out those two and I put in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy,
Okay.
which I think is really underrated. I think that's a really like cozy spy movie. And then the other movie I put in is Drive,
Oh, Ryan Gosling flick. Yeah.
best picture of the year. Yes, yes. And then my best picture of the year would have been The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which was not nominated at all.
I would argue that one too. I think of the nominees, Moneyball would have been my pick.
Sure.
I'm a little shocked that Girl with the Dragon Tattoo didn't even get enough first place votes.
Yeah.
That's shocking to me.
I yeah, I don't I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there are movies in here that are fine, like Warhorse, and I love Spielberg, but like Warhorse to me is
That's definitely not on the
fine.
top of his catalog.
Yeah.
I've
I
never
remember
I
watching that in
I,
Christmas being completely alone, like with a bunch of like 70-year-olds. So, yeah,
I
it's fine.
it's certainly I've never seen it, so I don't want to come out and say like, oh, anything, but it's very clear just even from the reception that that was one of those like, yeah, Spielberg made it. What about it? Well, Spielberg made it. It's like, okay, got
Yeah.
it.
Um, favorite movie?
It's Moneyball.
Okay. That's really surprising actually. I would have never guessed that.
Again, up until a couple years ago, never watched it.
Huh.
Uh,
Yeah,
I can't
mine
even.
would be The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo or Deathly Hallows Part
I was
2.
gonna say, come on now. There's got to be Deathly Hallows Part Two at least somewhere in there. But I will
Depends on the
say
day.
I will say this. Looking back at 2011, for me personally, woof. That's not a year that I think is
Yeah.
it. And there are some movies I like, but it's not a strong contender for me where I'm like, yeah, that was one of those years where there were some strong contenders the couple years prior. And that was one of the first summers where I just went, summer kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you get that every couple of years now where it's just like summer blockbusters just
I think
suck.
I think this year was one of them. Outside of Deadpool and Wolverine,
Yeah.
there wasn't a movie during the summer that was like, oh, I gotta see that. Or even if it's a summer where it's not great, there's usually a couple that I'm like, oh, I should like 2022. I wasn't like wowed, but I was like, okay, there's indie, there's a couple other things coming out that at least like got my attention. The Flash came out
Hmm.
that year, and I was like, well, it's got Michael Keaton's Batman. I'm gonna go see it. Like, like they that movie sucks. By the way, it's horrible, but
Yeah, oh, it's awful.
it is that would be a great competition show. What's worse, The Flash or Green Lantern?
I haven't seen the Green Lantern since it came out, but my guess would be the Green Lantern's better.
God, Green Lantern. I got a quick story about the Green Lantern here.
Okay, sure.
So Green Lantern, ironically, is probably the not the movie, but tangentially because of the movie is why I am such a comic book fan. Because I remember getting like really deep into the Batman comics, but it was like I really much pretty much only read Batman. And then I was started to branch out into like Justice League, and that's where I was like, okay. And I've always been a DC fanboy. And then they announced Green Lantern's coming out. It had Ryan Reynolds, and I liked Ryan Reynolds, and I went, instead of me just blindly hating this character, let me read these comics. And it was really prompted by the movie coming out, so I at least kind of understood it. And I found the entire Jeff Johns run of Green Lantern and absolutely fell in love. And that to this day could be argued as maybe one of, if not my favorite run of comic books ever, is Jeff Johns' run on Green
Mhm.
Lantern. Midnight release of Green Lantern, when they still did midnight releases, not even the 10 p.m. bullshit.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, oh, I have to go. I have to. It's Green Lantern. I have to go. I could not get a single soul to go with me to the point where Dad felt bad for me and agreed to go. He says this is at the point that he's just like, you can go do whatever the hell you want. You're technically an adult.
Yeah.
And I could tell it was the first time I ever saw Dad go like, I legitimately feel bad for you that no one will go, so I will go. And he did not want to go. And he's a huge Ryan Reynolds fan. there was maybe us and 8 or 9 other people in that theater, and it was
Wow.
in the big, you know, like Marcus and Oshkosh, like
Yeah.
the theater ones, like the giant stadium seating one. Maybe 8 other people. Like that was a flop amongst.
Wow.
That was a flop of
Holy
flops,
crap.
and that movie hurt my feelings so much that I was just like,
Yeah, it sucked. I mean,
it's so bad.
there's, there's no way of putting it other than it sucked.
Trust me, when we talk about that tournament idea for a show in a couple months, Green Lantern's making an appearance.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, it was just one of those where there's like 8 other like, and the worst part is I think I knew 6 of the 8 other people in the theater because I at least saw them at the comic book store. So I knew it was just like me and the other sweaty nerds that were like, "It's Green
Yeah.
Lantern, we have to be here," and all of us were just like, "Fuck, this movie sucks." With giant poop cloud parallax and oh God, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Okay. 2011 Rising Star Award. Chris Hemsworth, Chris O'Dowd, Adam Deacon, Eddie Redmayne, and Tom Hiddleston.
That's a good crew.
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume. I think let's say Chris Hemsworth because he's got more of the action star about him.
It is Adam Deacon.
The one I
And
know what
guess
he
what?
knows.
I have no idea who that is.
I was hoping you were about to tell me because I have no idea who that is.
No. And when I looked him up, I was like, I've literally never heard of anything he's in.
Maybe they got that one wrong.
So like he must have just been in some like either really big indie British movie or a really big British TV show. Yeah.
uh, of that, that's a good crew though.
I know
O'Dowd,
that the other ones are
Hiddleston,
like
Hemsworth, like
the other
that's
ones are all yeah, big hitters.
yeah, yeah, that's funny. It's what I look back on. Again, I'm sorry I do this every episode, but there's a time period of like pro wrestling where every champion you're just like, yeah, makes sense, and then there's just that one guy where you're like, he had it, what?
Yeah.
And then it goes back,
Exactly.
and then it goes back to Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, Hall of Famer, and you're like, yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
It's just, I think this is the BAFTAs just being like, ah, fuck, we fucked that one up. Just don't talk about him.
Yeah. That's the one they want everyone to forget about.
All right, let's roll into 2012 here. Alrighty. To no shock of anybody, the highest grossing film of 2012 is Marvel's Avengers, which I think for the time is extremely worthy. Of the time. That's hence the reason I put the caveat there. Oddly, a movie that has not aged well in the eyes of even fans. It's kind of crazy. Because, I mean, for a long time, that held or challenged the record for highest grossing film of all time. It's wild.
Mhm.
No other notables this year. This was a strong year. Dark Knight Rises, Hunger Games, Skyfall. It made a lot of money even though it's not good. Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2. Have I seen it? No. Like I said, never seen it. But can't be good. It's Twilight. Amazing Spider-Man, the first one with Andrew Garfield.
I've seen it. It's garbage.
Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. Brave. The first Hobbit film, Unexpected Journey. Other popular stuff during this year is Ted, Magic Mike, Wreck-It Ralph, Django Unchained, Pitch Perfect, which is apparently the college-aged women of my age group. It's one of their biggest fucking comfort movies.
Yep.
And Universal just won't let it die.
Yeah.
NBC Universal will not let that goddamn franchise die. They're like, nope,
Yeah.
there's still more here. And
It's because it's so cheap to make them.
in a big re-release in 3D, Titanic came out this year as a re-release and made some money.
Yes. Yes, it did.
Again, I don't have a ton of changes and or shout-outs, but strong year. Strong year.
Technical changes?
So I'll start with just quick shout-outs, that things they got correct, and then I'll do my one change.
Oh, sure.
in what should be the most obvious win of all time is the most obvious win of all time, and that is Skyfall winning for original song, Voice of an Angel, Adele.
I
Love
don't
you.
know about most obvious win of all
No, I'm
time.
quite certain that is the most obvious win in Oscar history, possibly.
No, 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 no.
Dude, if I swear, if you could write a wrestling style sign of if Adele doesn't win, we riot in the stands, I don't know what Oscar win could. That was so abundantly clear that not only was she going to win, that she deserved to win for that.
No, I mean I agree she deserved it. I just don't know about most obvious of all time.
I want to do a show one time where we go through Oscars history and we just go, yep, obvious, yep, yep. I think that's up there. Original screenplay, it did not win, but I'm glad it got a shout out. I would have thought about it at the very least. Was one of my favorite films, Moonrise Kingdom. I'm glad
Oh
that
sure, yeah.
I'm glad that got a shout out. A wildly underrated film from Wes Anderson, and I
Yep.
honestly, for me personally, I think it's his best work outside of. It's my favorite. But I think it's wildly
Okay,
underrated.
sure.
Everyone's gonna go Grand Budapest or Life Aquatic. I think I would go
That's my
Kingdom.
favorite. This Grand Budapest.
And animated feature, I would have changed Brave wins, and I think Paranorman or Wreck It Ralph are better.
That's one of my changes is Wreck-It Ralph over Brave.
And I'm glad to see Paranorman got a nom, but I think Paranorman's better than Brave.
And I will stand up for Brave. Everyone shits on it. I do think it's actually a good movie.
Yes, it is.
It's just comparatively like people have a tendency to say, "Oh, it sucks because it won over the other two." But it's like, no, it's still a solid movie.
I think solid is a great operative word for it. I think it is a classic, above average, middle of the road movie where you're like, yeah, it's good. But nothing
Yeah.
about Brave, everything about Merida as a character and kind of the story of Brave itself screams, in comparison to a lot of movies of that ilk, screams, you should love this to me. And I still just go, it's fine.
Yeah. I do like the three little like triplet ginger brothers
Oh,
just wreaking havoc on the kingdom.
well, naturally. I mean, as two gingers, of course we love that shit. um,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think Wreck It Ralph is a better film personally,
Yeah.
and I also think Paranorman's a better film, and the animation style of Paranorman's beautiful. I
I haven't
adore
seen that since it came out.
Paranorman's so good.
Um
It's one of those that again working with kids again during Halloween time, I'll just play and the first thing they see, they're like, "I've never heard of this. I don't want to watch it." Within 2 minutes, they're just like, "I'm so glad you showed us this movie." I'm like, "I know.
yeah.
That's why I put it on for you."
I had two more that I wrote down. One I just completely don't understand. I would have changed it so the Hobbit won makeup and hair over Les Mis. I just straight up don't understand why Les Mis won.
I
Like what's impressive about them making people look dirty? Like
I was going to write that down, especially because the characters on screen specifically, this isn't Lord of the Rings where they're morphing one outside of the ears of Legolas. They're
yeah.
morphing one character mostly with makeup, and I know Ian McKellen has some, not
Mhm.
much. Where like Gimli's the only one you really
Well,
have
yeah.
to
I mean, his
morph.
entire beard is fake and his
Right.
wig and everything.
Yeah. Like Gimli's the only one where facially you have to do a lot of work outside of like fake beard and wig to morph. With the Hobbit, almost every character on screen at
Yeah.
all times has to be done in really good makeup.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, Les Mis, when I think about that movie, I don't think about anything that's impressive with their hairstyling or makeup.
Talk about a movie that we'll talk about in Beck's picture as well. Talk about a movie that doesn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
staying power. At all.
Not at all. Yes. I used to really enjoy that movie at the time. I still kind of like it, but yeah, yeah, that has not aged
Yeah,
well.
I didn't write that one down because I was like, am I just forgetting something about about Les Mis that
No, it's just people looking dirty, and that's about it. Because it's the French and whenever the fucking revolution was.
all right, I'm gonna pause the comment then when we get to Best Picture, but I have a question for you on that one. So if I forget to ask, please remind me what
Okay.
was your question.
Okay. And then my other one was this is like a really big one that I really wanted to mention because they never give any kind of shout out or they never recognize any kind of horror movies. I would have really liked to see a sound mixing award for Sinister.
Okay.
I love the like quiet sound mixing where they put in the film reels
Okay.
ticking along and it just creates this like eerie sense of dread throughout the entire movie and it's probably like the best sense of sound in a horror movie in a long time
Okay.
because it's not score that they're using to create atmosphere. It's just completely just sound. And you rarely get that in horror.
That's interesting. Yeah. Never would have thought about
And
that,
yeah,
but
they never appreciate horror in any kind of way at the Oscars ever.
until
So,
Get Out, yeah. And Get Out's more
and
psychological
that's
thriller.
yeah, and I was gonna say that's barely a horror movie. So those are the technical changes. So jumping into the five, we got Ang Lee winning Best Director for Life of Pi, Daniel Day Lewis winning for Lincoln, Jennifer Lawrence Silver Linings Playbook, Christoph Waltz winning his second Oscar for Django Unchained,
Goddamn right.
and Anne Hathaway for Les Mis.
Did Jamie Foxx get nominated for Django?
No, he did not. I
I'm a
believe.
little
Let
surprised
me
by that one.
let
I
me
thought
make
he might.
sure. He did not.
I was a
No.
little surprised when I saw that last night doing notes. I was like, really? Okay. I mean, interesting.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean,
how did
the other
Leo get a nom for supporting actor?
no.
That's horseshit. Like that's legit horseshit.
That was like the big thing was like should Christoph Waltz even be considered supporting actor, you know? Cuz he's in the majority of the movie.
It's more co-lead with Jamie
Yeah.
Foxx than it is. Yeah, I get it.
It's one of those things where like the studio just pushes what they want on that kind of thing.
But it feels like
But yeah,
he could win supporting actor. He couldn't win
true.
actor.
And that could be a thing where they don't want Leo going up against their own like them competing for the same award,
Because with all
splitting
due
the vote.
respect, I think Christoph Waltz is a deserving winner for that role. But Leonardo DiCaprio is the high
Yeah,
point of that film. Or honestly, I could have saw a nom for Sam Jackson in that role too.
he's not in it enough, but yeah, he is great in that movie.
I think all four of their principal actors, because all due respect to Kerry Washington, she's not really doing much in that movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
she's also not in it much.
those four really, really carry that movie with performance. Where you're like, God
Yeah, I just saw
damn,
a
they're good.
I just saw an interview with Sam Jackson where he was talking about does he have a problem with Quentin Tarantino like using the N word and like racist language and stuff, and he's like, I've never understood why people have a problem with it because every character he's created for me is always like the most intelligent character in the movie. And it's true. Like
That is
Samuel Jackson's
that's an
character in
interesting,
that movie is
super
probably
intelligent.
the most intelligent character in the movie. So it's just interesting. I could see Jamie Foxx getting a nomination. The other nominees for actor are Bradley Cooper Silver Linings Playbook, Hugh Jackman, Les Mis, Joaquin Phoenix for The Master, and then Denzel for Flight.
Yeah.
I would have been totally fine with trading out either Bradley Cooper, Denzel, or Hugh Jackman, honestly. I would have kept Joaquin Phoenix and The Master for sure, but
I
I would
mean,
have been fine with
it's a strong category, though. You know,
it
it's
is
not.
a strong category. Yeah.
And I think it just speaks to Jamie Foxx's performance that you're like, well, I could swap it out with any of these, and I don't think any of these are undeserving to be
Yeah.
nominated. So it's
Also, one of the
it's a
things to
strong
mention
year for the Oscars in general in terms of.
yeah, one of the things to mention about supporting actor that's weird is Christoph Waltz won every single award for the guilds, but he was not nominated for a Screen Actors Guild award at all. So it's really, really weird because you rarely get that where someone's not nominated for a SAG award, but then is nominated for an Oscar and then ends up winning it.
Yeah, it's an interesting
Because
twist
the
there.
voting bodies are pretty similar.
I didn't fight it. Let's get to Best Picture here. I didn't fight it.
Oh, just a couple quick
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
shout outs. I just had a couple quick shout outs for supporting actor. Michael Caine in Dark Knight Rises
Fair.
and Javier Bardem in Skyfall.
Yeah, I was looking for a category because I was like, Skyfall didn't get enough love, but I just didn't know like what category was I really going to be like, come on, come
Yeah,
on.
Skyfall actually has one of the I didn't know this was possible at the time because when I was watching the Oscars live, they have the first tie that I had ever seen live.
Oh
Where
really?
they won. They tied for sound mixing, I believe it was. No, sound editing. They tied with Zero Dark 30.
I honestly could have seen a writing award for Skyfall. It's a really well written movie too, and
Yeah,
cinematography as well with Skyfall is really good.
they just tend not to nominate genre stuff. So,
Well, specifically,
um,
James Bond never gets
oh,
any recognition whatsoever. But yeah,
also we before we get into picture, we have to bring up the fact that literally every single Guild Award went to Ben Affleck for Best Director, and he was not nominated at all for an Oscar. Just straight up not nominated.
yeah, but then Best Picture wins, right? It's Argo,
Yes, it's
which
just
makes
so
no
confusing.
sense. It's
But no, like literally, he wins the DGA, he wins Critics' Choice, he wins the BAFTA, he wins the Golden Globe for Best Director, all of them, and then just straight up is not nominated for an Oscar for Best Director. It's like the most confusing thing in recent Oscars history, and then it ends up winning Best Picture. It's
makes
just
no
so
sense.
baffling. So,
What
Best
I
Picture,
do? I yeah. Now that you say that, I remember that, and I was like, that's bullshit. Like,
yeah, and the thing about it, like, I'm glad I did all this research because I didn't realize he had swept all the other Guild Awards. I just thought, like, oh, it's weird that he won Best Picture without even being nominated for Best Director.
yeah.
Because that's weird enough as is. But now that I know he swept all the other awards with it, that's like crazy.
Yeah.
So jumping into picture, Argo wins it. Other nominees: Zero Dark 30, Lincoln, Silver Linings Playbook, Amour, Beasts of the Southern Wild, Life of Pi, Les Mis, and Django Unchained.
If I were gonna change it, I'd pick Django, but that's not what I was gonna
Okay?
talk about. But I think Django is phenomenal. I think Argo is great too.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a movie just designed to win an Oscar? Like if you were to create like AI in a lab said we must create the best picture winner for an Oscar. They would spit out Les Mis. It's a period piece musical with really big time actors. And it's a popular
Yeah.
stage play or stage production that they already know works. If that does not scream We are trying to win an Oscar here. I don't know what does.
I think they're not doing it in the right age though. Like I think had that Les Mis come out maybe in like
98?
yeah, like in that late 90s, early 2000s range, that would have been a perfect
Oh, that's a sweeper. That's going to
movie
sweep
for
everything.
then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little late for musicals now in the Oscars age, because very rarely do you get one that's actually good, honestly. Do you have any changes? Because I have one where you just mentioned it's one of your favorite movies, Moonrise.
I thought about it. I just didn't know if I could argue it. I would have liked to see a nom for Moonrise Kingdom. It's just got so much heart to it. It's such an endearing. Your
Yeah,
term is cozy. Like I can tell that that's your term when you're like,
yeah,
it's
it
such a nice
is.
cozy movie. Moonrise Kingdom is one of those that I used to just scour online what streaming service had Moonrise Kingdom, and I would just go find it and just rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it. I adore that. It's so good.
Yeah,
It's so good.
this is where you get a lot of like general public starting to appreciate Wes Anderson too.
Yes.
I feel like so. Yeah, I had Moonrise Kingdom jumping in for a nomination, and The Master jumping in for a nomination, and I took out Les Mis and East of the Southern Wild. East of the Southern Wild's perfectly fine. It's just pretty forgettable to me. And then
Also,
Les Mis, yeah,
if I'm
like we said,
being
it's just
if I'm being
fine.
completely selfish, I would have took out Les Mis for Skyfall. So
Sure, I mean that's completely
I
understandable.
think Skyfall is a truly magnificent film. Everything in that film
If you're,
works.
yeah, I mean,
Everything.
if you're talking about action movies, it's hard to be better than that. I mean, I like Casino Royale more, but like Skyfall is a more
I think Skyfall is a more character-driven piece than Casino Royale, which is
sure.
interesting because a lot of people are like, oh, the character work of Casino Royale. But
Well, I was gonna say it's like a finer tuned action movie.
yeah,
Yeah, so overall, I do think this is actually a pretty good year for the Oscars because
yep,
I think Argo, Lincoln, Life of Pi, Django, Zero Dark 30, those are all like pretty solid movies that I would have been okay with winning.
yeah.
Um, there's just a couple that like, yeah, and then this is also where you start getting a lot of Anne Hathaway unwarranted hate.
For no reason, because she's
Yeah,
also in an awesome movie that year, Dark Knight Rises. So, and she say what you will, because I know it is not the most beloved Batman movie. Anne Hathaway is great in The Dark Knight Rises. She's
I do
arguably,
like her in that.
I think she's the best part about that movie.
No, Michael Caine is.
Michael Caine's not enough of the movie for me to say that.
He's great in it though.
I think Anne Hathaway is magnificent in that.
Um, okay, so before we jump into 2013, the Rising Star Award.
We still got to do our favorites, so it's cool.
Yeah, 2012, you got Juno Temple, Alicia Vikander, Andrea Riseborough, Elizabeth Olsen, and Suraj Sharma.
That's not a bad
Suraj,
category. That's a pretty strong
yes,
category.
Suraj Sharma is the lead in Life of Pi, and he was also in that $1 Million Arm movie. Remember that? The Disney John Hamm baseball movie.
Oh yeah, that movie did release. That was a
And then
movie. I forgot about that.
Andrea Riseborough, if you don't know her, she was in Birdman, and she was also in that Tom Cruise Oblivion movie. Uh,
Tom Cruise movie I didn't see. Yes,
oh, okay, you didn't see it. Okay,
I loved how you're like, if I'm gonna get him, it's gonna be the Tom Cruise movie, and it's like the one that
yeah, that
that was during that era where I didn't just blindly go to see Tom Cruise movies, where I was like, you still gotta sell
yeah.
me a little bit, Tom.
Well, There's also a weird thing. Andrea Riseborough, I think last year,
What?
she got nominated for Best Actress, but there was this weird like controversy where everyone was all upset in the industry because she had like this weird grassroots campaign that ended up being successful for her, and it had like no studio backing, and everyone's like all pissed off about it. It's like what? That's how it should work. Like that's
That
how.
people actually saw the movie, liked the movie, and wanted
Yes,
you to
and it's like,
win?
why is that a bad thing? Why are we arguing against this?
Oh, you mean the constant criticism of the Oscars? There's some truth to it that they're just sniffing their own farts. Yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. I don't
That
maybe I just don't know the full
I'm
story,
glad
but
I don't know the full story then because frankly or I'm glad I didn't know that cuz that would have made me again lose even more faith in the
I
Academy.
mean they she did end up getting a nomination, so I'm glad. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean if that is always been and always will be the issue with the Oscars. When you don't recognize
Well, yeah,
films
those
that people
giant producers, yeah.
when you don't recognize films that people actually watch, that sell tickets, that make the movie industry possible. All due respect to some of these movies, I'm truly not shitting on any movie of any kind. But when you're making these period piece movies that half the time can't even make their budget back, especially in a modern context, and then you don't recognize big time movies that sell tickets and keep the industry alive to the point where movie theaters still exist or things of that nature. Like that's why people don't have faith in this fucking thing and they're like, "Oh, it's a fun party to have every year." And then everyone just goes,
Yeah.
"Why
Well,
wasn't this nominated? That's bullshit. Why was that nominated? That movie sucked." Whatever.
yeah. Always an unfortunate part of it is when you get giant producers who can just throw money at a campaign.
Like
It's
that
just like politics where money can pretty much solve any problem.
yeah, no, no bueno on that one. Who was the rising star that year?
Juno Temple, which surprised me. I'm not sure why though.
Dark Knight
Like,
Rises,
but
she's in that, and I think she's in one
she
other
is.
thing around that time. Yeah, she's Selena's
She is.
friend.
She is in an atonement, but that's like way before 2012.
I mean, that would be
Um,
that's a strong race in terms of who I think is better off of the three obvious choices of that group now. Because
yeah.
Alicia Vikander's been in like higher quality stuff, but she usually doesn't do a ton.
I of those five, I would have picked her. Well, like with hindsight,
Yeah.
like she's the
Elizabeth
standout.
Olsen is clearly the most relevant of that group because of her
Yeah,
Marvel involvement, but she is doing more stuff that's getting her attention outside of Marvel now. And Juno Temple, her most relevant thing to most people is Ted Lasso. So,
yeah, exactly.
it's an interesting group to say the least. Favorite movie of 2012?
Uh, oh, good question. Why don't you answer? I'll Google real quick to
I
make
was
sure.
flabbergasted again. Strong year for your boy here. I love The Dark Knight Rises. I am one of the people that absolutely adores that film, and I adore Skyfall. If Skyfall is probably my favorite Bond movie, and I love James Bond. No Time to Die and Casino Royale, and maybe GoldenEye are also in that mix for me, but Skyfall is incredible. But I think if we're actually thinking of my true favorite, it's probably Moonrise Kingdom. I adore Moonrise
It's
Kingdom.
a solid movie. I haven't rewatched it in a long time. I should. How many?
It's got your girl Frances McDermott from Fargo.
She's in like, yeah, like every movie ever. Um,
That's actually one of the few
I
movies I've ever seen with Frances McDermott.
oh, that's true because you haven't seen a lot of the Coen brothers.
No,
I'd probably say either Argo or Skyfall, probably.
fair.
Yeah,
I mean, it's got three of my
I
top
don't,
100.
I don't love Skyfall all that much. I like Casino Royale a lot more than Skyfall,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yeah, Skyfall's so good. And Dark Knight Rises, I'm an apologist for. I have no problem with saying that. I love the Dark Knight Rises. I think it's great. Is it flawed? Yes.
yeah. Well,
Do I care?
we'll end up
No.
watching that, won't we?
I don't know. It's
Oh
not the
no, we
highest
won't.
grosser because it's Avengers.
Never mind. It's the Avengers.
I think
So
eventually one day on the
I'd
show,
rather watch that.
I think one day on the show we're probably just going to cover every Batman movie anyways. So
Oh God.
eventually that's the content that you got to get into. You know? So
I mean, if it ends up with us watching the Batman, then I'm fine with it.
but yeah, that was 2012, which was again strong year, in my opinion, for movies. And to the final year of the episode, we go. 2013, highest grossing film, also known as that Avengers hangover, because we could not get enough Marvel of that time from the general audience. Iron Man 3 is the highest grossing film of 2013. Also, a movie that when we draw it for a big box office, I am not necessarily excited. I'm not
No.
pissed, but I'm not excited. I've often said that movie is a good action movie. It's not a good Iron Man movie. Um, I don't think it's that bad of a movie. It just doesn't fit context. Notables also of that time. Another one that not as good as the book, Catching Fire. Bad version of a book. And then reverse, Mockingjay is better than the book in my opinion. Despicable Me 2, Man of Steel, Monsters University, Frozen, and this year we get the greatest gaffe in Oscars history.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, World War Z, Gravity, Fast and Furious 6, the the franchise that never was, Oz, the Great and Powerful, Star Trek Into Darkness, Thor, The Dark World, The Lone Ranger,
Ooh,
The
yeah, a lot of
Heat,
gems.
The Great Gatsby. However, we do also get This Is the End and the straight horror remake of, or not remake, but the straight horror version of Evil Dead, which I think is great. I love that movie.
Hmm.
So it's fun times here in 2013, but a lot of trash too. So it's a weird year. I have but one change.
Okay, I actually have no changes, so you can throw yours out there.
No nomination for your boy Ed Sheeran in the original song for I See Fire. I think that is wrong. I think it deserves a nom.
Mm.
I don't think it deserves a win necessarily, but I think it deserves a nom.
When it didn't get nominated, I understood why. Because I was like, I don't know. It just didn't seem like the type of song that would get nominated ever. I was okay with it.
Yeah, I think it works really well. I think it's just good. It's good. It's a good song.
I mean, I love that song.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, good times.
I would have been super happy had it been nominated.
Oh, also that was great in concert seeing Ed Sheeran and seeing I See Fire with the whole background and stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah,
So
it's great live.
was I don't have any real changes.
So as you said, this year is John Travolta's Adele Dazeem year.
Adim Dazim.
And then also you get McConaughey's like terribly delivered speech, which just confused everyone. I
Yes.
remember watching it live and just being like, I think I understand what you're trying to get at.
Yeah,
But
I understood it, and I again kind of like I said earlier in the show, where I'm always the guy that has to listen and then explain it to others. I had to do that in the room for a couple people, and they're like, "What the fuck was that?" I was like, "Well, he's talking about his future self, and he
but
can never reach his
he
goals because that's who his hero is eventually who he
but he
is."
did not say it well.
But it did not come off well. It sounded kind of like a rambling mess.
He sounded very egotistical.
A little bit, a little bit.
And then also this year, our future president, Donald Trump, attacks Kim Novak, who is a screen legend from particularly Vertigo, because I think she was like presenting this like animated short or animated feature or something like that. Then he attacked her looks because she had plastic surgery done, and then he said, "Oh, you should sue your surgeon." It's like Donald Trump. If anyone should be attacking anyone's looks, it shouldn't be you. It's just like it just drives me crazy.
It just did you see my face drop and my mood changed when you're like our future president? I went fuck. Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
day or two since I thought about that. So,
This is 3 years before he even became
but this is the
president.
start of when he started dabbling
Yeah,
into
that's
that
true.
shit. Like, because remember that was also during the time he was really trying to do the whole like birther movement shit, where he was trying to
Yeah,
say
that's true. Yeah.
Obama wasn't born in the United States, and that's when he
Yeah.
was really starting to dip his toe and see if he could. Because remember, people don't ever remember this. I can tell you this: one of the only things he might actually be telling the truth about is I don't think he ever wanted to be president. It was all a ploy to try to help him make money. And then he got
Oh,
so popular
yeah,
with the morons of Republican voters
I
that
can believe that.
he won. Because
Yeah, I
like
can
he
believe
comes
that.
down an escalator looking like a complete moron. And he's just like Mexicans are rapists, and you're like, this is a guy running for president? Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? And then he wins, and you're like, all my faith in this country is dead. And then we get a little
Yeah,
bit of
and
faith
it's just
back, and
like,
then I lost it again last month.
Kim Novak's a legend. You fucking ogre. Get
Yeah.
out of here.
Donald Trump's a piece of shit, and we can all say it, and
Yeah.
we can all know it. And even if you like Donald Trump, I think you can admit he's a piece of shit. So, and if you don't
Yeah. And
like
then
it, we don't care. So fuck off.
other notable things, American Hustle gets 10 nominations, ends up winning 0. Yeah. Steve McQueen becomes the first black director to win. And then Gravity, nominated 10 times, wins 7.
Yeah, this was a two-horse race year where pretty much you
Yeah.
knew it was
12 years or
Gravity.
Gravity.
It was Gravity or 12 Years a Slave. Whew, Michael Fassbender in 12 Years a Slave. God damn, that's a performance because you just go, what
Yes.
a piece of shit. Like, just
Yeah. There are a
human
lot of great
shit.
performances in that.
Yes, the whole movie is
Um,
stacked with great performances, so I don't want to
yeah.
just
Jumping
single out
into the
one.
5. Jumping into the 5. Oh, wait, no, that's not true. Steve McQueen did not win. Why did I think that?
Hmm.
I don't know. Alfonso Cuarón won for Gravity. Maybe first black director to be nominated? No, that can't be true. I don't know. Maybe that was just a gaffe on my part.
We'll
Um,
correct. To this day, I've never seen
Matthew Mc-
Gravity, so
oh, I saw it in the theater, that's a good experience, I will say.
again, it's one of
Um,
those movies that captured an audience for about 3 months and then just disappeared. It won an Oscar and
yeah,
everyone, and the mission's over.
I will say it's not that enjoyable of a movie to watch at home anymore, but like on the big screen, it was pretty fun to watch. McConaughey wins for Dallas Buyers Club. Kate Blanchett wins for Blue Jasmine. Jared Leto wins for Dallas Buyers Club, and then Lupita Nyong'o for 12 Years a Slave.
I think all the right winners won here.
I changed supporting actor. I don't actually have a problem with Jared Leto winning. His performance is actually great. But I did say I would have liked to see Jonah Hill win for The Wolf of Wall Street.
I also could have argued Michael Fassbender as a slave.
Yeah. I don't know if he got nominated for it, but
I feel like he did.
oh yes, he did. He did. Yes.
I think all
His,
three are very worthy act. I just think Jared Leto's performance, regardless of what people think about the dude, right role motherfucker can act. He is phenomenal in Dallas Buyers Club, as is Matthew
yes.
McConaughey.
Well, this is before everyone like kind of sees him as like really pretentious.
Well, so
So,
his career's gone in waves, where he started as rocker, and then just
yeah.
started kind of doing some movies, and then the people that were in the know of like the niche audience that he was kind of in were like, he's a problematic dude. And then he had his rise back up during this time period where like, oh, I love Jared Leto. He's so good at what he does. And then Suicide Squad happens, and then pretty much everyone just starts going, oh wait, no, he's a pretentious piece of shit. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Um That's the only change I had. A couple shout outs. Hugh Jackman in Prisoners and Tom Hanks in Captain Phillips, and then Paul Dano in Prisoners as well.
You are such a
Yeah,
Paul Dano fan. It's ridiculous.
yeah, he's great. He's like great in everything he's in. Like
I've
literally
I've
everything.
only ever seen him as the Riddler. I'm not against it, but any time that there's not a show that goes by at this point that you somehow do not mention Paul Dano.
Hey, Daniel Day Lewis said he's got the chops.
If you're gonna pick
If
him, pick him.
yeah,
I
if you're
guess
certified by Daniel Day Lewis, that's good enough for me.
Daniel Day Lewis is
Um,
the Rotten Tomatoes of actors. If
yeah.
he certifies you fresh, you're fresh.
Best Picture goes to 12 Years a Slave, The Wolf of Wall Street, Her, Dallas Buyers Club, Gravity, American Hustle, Captain Phillips, Nebraska, and Philomena.
So Philomena, Nebraska, Gravity, and there's another one you mentioned. But this is one where I've actually
Her.
seen. But this is actually a category I've seen the majority of the films. I've
Oh,
seen.
okay.
I think
Captain
her is
Phillips.
Captain Phillips is the one I haven't seen.
Okay.
So, but her 12 years. Like this is a really good group of films. Where this is a year where I can go. There's a decent mix of stuff, and there's not. To me, when looking back at the popular films of the year, there isn't a movie anywhere close to sticking out where you go, come on. Like 2010
Yeah.
Inception gets a nom and you're like, no shit. Like, come on. Like, it's obviously really, really good. 2012 Skyfall would be the one I'd probably make the argument for that's both like a great Oscar contender and a great popular movie that doesn't make it, but I don't think it but if I have to say I think I could make an argument, I don't think it's good enough in that realm somewhat. This is one a year that I go, you know what? Nothing really sticks out. This feels like the Oscars actually has a little bit of weight this year.
Yeah, I had three changes, but that's just down to personal taste. Because I actually do think Dallas Buyers Club, Nebraska, and Philomena are good movies. I just changed them out for Before Midnight, Inside Llewyn Davis, which is a Coen Brothers movie, which I think is underrated, and then Prisoners. Yeah, those are just personal choices though,
Yeah.
because I actually do think that's actually a really solid lineup of Best Picture nominees.
And 12 Years a Slave feels like the obvious choice.
When I saw it in theaters, I was like literally 100% sure it was going to win Best Picture.
Yeah. I don't
And I
I think
think
I
it came
watched
out
it
in like
after
October.
I think I watched it after the fact, but I was just like, yeah, I get it. It's it's good. It's a good movie. It's fucking
Yeah,
devastating and
it came out
horrific.
in yeah, it came out in October, and I do remember going to the theater because this is when I was just
Going to
like
everything.
going to literally anything that had to do with any Oscars buzz. And I was just like, okay, really excited to see it. And then, yeah, when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is gonna win. There's no possibility this is gonna lose to anything else.
It's
I will say, I also when I saw Her in theaters, I wasn't sure if it was gonna get a nomination because I really love that movie.
Her is very
I'm
good.
really glad it. Yeah, I'm really glad it did get nominated.
Yeah, I remember watching that with Ab and a couple people, and we all just kind of looked and were like, "Pretty good fucking movie." God damn.
Yeah, that's another shout out. Actually, Spike Jones
Yeah.
direction for her. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. What was our BAFTA Rising Star of the Year?
Oh yes. Okay, so you got Dane DeHaan, George McKay, Lupita Nyong'o, Leah Sado,
Leah Seydoux.
and Will Poulter.
Well, there's one obvious choice amongst all of them. That is not a strong year in terms of whoa. It's like I think there are good actors in there. There's one that makes me say maybe, but there is
Yeah,
one abundantly obvious choice of yep, yep.
yeah.
And if
But
it's
who do you think got it?
now that you say that, I feel like it's gonna be a trick question. It's got to be Lupita. It's got to be
It is
Lupita.
not. It
What?
is Will Poulter.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so confusing sometimes because I'm like, well, the thing is, like, Lupita Nyong'o, I'm pretty sure 12 Years a Slave was like one of her first movies.
Yeah.
And like, I think her first big movie. So, and Will Poulter, I'm pretty sure the only thing he had done before in 2013
It's We're the
that
Millers.
was, I'm pretty sure like that's the only big movie he had done.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to think of the other ones. George McKay, I have no idea what he had done before.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, he did you see 1917?
No.
Oh, okay, he's the lead in that. He's great. He's also in Captain Fantastic with Viggo Mortensen, which is an underrated movie.
Okay.
And then yeah, Dane DeHaan. I don't know what he would have been in before 2013. Did the first Amazing Spider-Man come out?
Uh, so he wasn't in the first Amazing Spider-Man. He's only in the second one.
Oh,
Because that
okay.
was part of the big buzz was, oh shit, they're doing Harry Osborn, they're doing Green
Okay.
Goblin, but he was in Chronicle that year.
Yes, and he was also in I don't know if it came out before 2013, but he was in Kill Your Darlings with Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah, Dane DeHaan's one of those that I wish kind of got a better shake of movies. Like I just wish some of his choices
He
went
doesn't
better for
seem
him.
great at choosing, yeah, great
Be-
making
because
choices.
I totally understand the Amazing Spider-Man choice, where you're like,
Sure.
hey, I'm gonna be in this big franchise with these other young people that are hot at the time. You know, Andrew Garfield coming off of Social Network, and he's a really popular choice for Spider-Man. Emma Stone, obviously that works out for Emma Stone. Anything that you say, hey, I'm gonna work with Emma Stone, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna do it because I'm
Yeah.
working with Emma Stone, because she's kind of becoming quietly one of the most respected actresses of a generation.
She has 2 Oscars, and
I
she's not
know,
even,
but she's
what,
still
35?
yeah, but that's the thing is she's still remembered for non-Oscar stuff, which is hilarious.
Exactly. It's
But
it's incredible.
it because I remember the first time she got nominated and won, I was just like, "Good for you, Emma," because to me, Emma Stone is super bad in Zombieland.
Yeah.
Like that's who Emma Stone is to me. She's not starlet that carries these weighty productions for Oscars. She's hey, it's the girl next door Emma that we all love. Like that's awesome.
Mhm.
And I think it's hilarious because going back and watching like Superbad and Zombieland, you're like, huh, this is a two-time Academy Award winner for Best Actress.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and then Léa Seydoux.
She's great. I do love everything I've ever seen her in, but
I think the only thing I know she was in at around 2013 was Blue is the Warmest Color,
then
which
you're
actually I'm surprised they actually didn't pick her because that movie had like tons of buzz around that time. So,
well, she's in 2010's Robin Hood, if you recall.
oh yes, she
Yes, she is
is.
with a white Oscar Isaac, which is hilarious as Prince John.
Yes,
And then she gets,
got
and
that.
then it worked out 2 years later because then she's in,
Oh, she's also in Ghost Protocol.
yeah, she is, and then she's in Spectre 2 years later, where she becomes like the love
Yeah,
interest of James Bond.
yeah,
So I love when I see Leia Seydoux do something. I'm usually excited because I'm like, she's good. She doesn't
yeah.
usually pick projects that I'm like, yeah, but she's one of those. I'm like, could we do just a couple popular movies? Can we stop doing art house shit all the time?
I like when they stick to that.
It's just,
'Cause it
just.
makes me think that
I'm not saying
they,
everything. I don't want everything to be Chris Pratt, where you only do modern blockbusters. But at the same time, I'm just saying throw the general audience, like, do the Steven Soderbergh idea, where, like, the way Soderbergh always describes his career is, I do one for the studio, then I do one for me. Then I do one for the studio, then I do one for me. But they're always usually really enjoyable films, so it's fine. And it doesn't, like, mess his tone up or anything. But he's like, okay, I'm gonna go throw the studio a bone, I'm gonna do something for more of a general
Yeah.
audience, and then I'm gonna do a little bit more auteur stuff. Which I like.
Yeah, but the good thing about being an actor is you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Director, you sometimes have to do that.
Yeah, she's one of those people that I wish would do more popular stuff because I just want to see her in more stuff.
Sure.
Because a lot of the times when you get actors like that, they do these things and I'm like, I didn't know that was a movie. I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, yeah, there's tons of stuff like that.
Yeah, so. But alas, favorite film of 2013.
Ooh, that's a tough choice.
Yeah.
It's between Wolf of Wall Street, Her, and Prisoners. Those three I really like.
Um,
Which one?
this one was tough for me as well because again, there is no standout, but there isn't even like a really good competition. I think by default, it might be The Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug, but that's not like a strong like yeah. It's more of just like
Sure.
I think you won because you're in the same universe that I adore. World War Z might also take a nod there because I do like World War Z quite a bit. It's one of those movies that I see it on a streaming service. I always get excited. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I'll watch that. But there's no 2013 is not a strong year for your boy. It felt it again like 2011,
Yeah.
where I just went, "There's movies out this summer. None are that intriguing, but they're here."
Yeah. Well, for blockbusters, it's not great.
And that's what drives interest in movies for the vast majority of people. So
Most people.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a tough one. But that has been the years 2009 through 2013. It's been fun. We did a lot of time on this one, so I'm glad I broke it up into segments, so that'll be a lot easier to edit this bad boy. But you can check it out in yearly form, or you can check it out in full form, however you want to, on the show, and it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. In the next couple weeks, we're going to be covering Black Christmas for a cult classic series, which is a Dylan suggestion, which I'm excited for, because I have never seen that movie. However, I have a coworker that she asked me, she's getting into horror movies. She's a younger woman, and she just goes, I'm just really starting to get into horror, and I've heard a lot about something about camp. I was like, sleepaway camp, and she's like, yeah. I was like, it's not scary, but you should watch it. Like,
Yeah.
so I spread the show wealth of sleepaway camp to someone
it needs
else.
to spread like a virus.
That has never been said better. It needs to spread like a virus. Sleepaway camp.
Yeah.
But again, cult classic series is going to be a lot of fun to cover Black Christmas, and we're going to do a commentary track to Sleepaway Camp one day. It's got to happen. It's now too infamous in our family to not do it, especially that our younger family members are all starting to get into it as well. But you can see that towards the holidays, as if they're not just days away at this point. You're going to see our Fix It episode of Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. We're going to try to fix that franchise, which is already recorded and ready to go. And you're going to see our year-end review towards the end of the year, and it's going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And you can see Dylan not watch any 2024 movies trying to do a 2024 show. So that'll be hilarious.
Yes. A lot of non-2024 movies.
Meanwhile, I've been in the theater twice this week to see movies. Just like racking up movies, be like 2024, 2024. I've seen some stuff. And also out this week is a Wicked review, and I will have a review, if it's not already posted, of The Lord of the Rings: War of the Rohirrim. So you can see 2 movie reviews on the channel as well if you want to go check those out. But that has been this show for our Oscars recap. I hope everyone's still listening and watching. Go watch a great movie and enjoy your day from all of us over here at PT Creative. Peace, love, and hugs to you all.